So today we're going to be talking about the Cross Guild, which in my opinion is one of the most interesting factions right now. And I kind of see what Oda's doing with it. You know, all these significant characters that he has, and he's like, what do I do with them? You know, do I keep branching them off, focusing on their individual storylines? No, it would be easier to just bring them together in a faction. A super powerful, exciting faction. But right now, they're still kind of shallow. And I say that loosely because they have freaking Mihawk on their crew. But what if we already know what the full, or at least the front man, the top crew of the Cross Guild, the frontman of the Cross Guild is going to be? What if we already knew that? And what if I told you that we saw it in chapter 0?
Well, I didn't think this would be possible, but when you showed me the manga panel, I was transformed. I was born anew.
Sai has brought up the idea of something similar, but not with this cast of people. So, and one of them, it makes a lot of sense. The other one, I'm like, ooh, I want to see this happen. I want to see how this goes down. So like, and then yeah, when you show it, when I got the spoilers of what we're talking about, ooh, I love it. I like what I'm seeing right now.
So if you would have asked me this, I don't know, a couple months ago, I would have been like, oh, that's interesting. But I'm a little apprehensive because, you know, Moria, he seems like he's going to be a part of Blackbeard. Let's see what happens with Moria. Now that we've seen what happens with Moria, he is not with Blackbeard. He is not the 10th captain. It's Kuzan, as we speculated, but he's not even like an ancillary guy. He's just like, he refused
He's just in jail.
Yeah, he refused Blackbeard, which is kind of foolish. But hey, it seems like it's going to be working out for him because he might wind up joining the Cross Guild. So let me just give some context for anybody who's confused here. So chapter 0, which was like supplementary material for the Strong World movie, more or less, but also heavily integral to the overall canon regardless, we get more insight into what was happening at Roger's execution, more people that were actually there. And we see just one panel right in the middle of the page, and it is side by side Daffy, Buggy, Mihawk, Crocodile, and freaking Moria. And we already know that the 3 in the center here are the Cross Guild. And now that we know that Moria is not joining Blackbeard, which I was like, you know, what's going on with him? Where's his story leaded? Now I think it's going to be with him joining the Cross Guild, but also we have Daffy on the end here, and he was one of the prime candidates for joining the Cross Guild. And also that leads to, of course, Impelled Down, Prison Break, round 2.
It's got to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, especially,
the trend.
Oh yeah, especially with Dofi. I mean, even in Marineford, Crocodile and Dofi were almost like a tag team, where Dofi just kept on following him around, saying, "Hey, you want to team up? Let's rule the world. Let's do our thing." And then Crocodile kept on turning him down. But now that we're time skip, now that Dofi's been defeated and he's in jail, it's like maybe he will take him up on that offer. Maybe the tables have turned, and then Dofi's gonna come running to Crocodile instead. Who knows?
Yeah,
but
I mean,
like the idea of Impelled Down 2.0.
Yeah, like the half the reason why Oda keeps certain characters alive is so that he can bring them back, right? It's more of a question of where, and if this is the answer, I think like specifically for Doflamingo, like that was like a natural progression of things, right? Like from the bounties that they put out, it's like it reminded us of Dressrosa. The system that they had, it matches it perfectly. Doflamingo just seems like a character that would fit in like what feels like Buggy's circus, right? Like this dude, like he wasn't he like tightrope walking at one point too. Like this dude actually could just be in a circus. Like that's what Doflamingo kind of is. And Impel Down is kind of interesting because I was having this thought the other day that like Shiki escaped from Impel Down by cutting off his legs and then using his devil fruit powers. I was like, Doflamingo could do that. Like Doflamingo has stitched his organs together, right? Like, so why can't, like when he was like, oh, they sent assassins after me, I'm like, I'm half expecting Doflamingo just escape himself. Whether Impel Down 2.0 is like instigated by an outside party, I don't even think that necessarily needs to happen. I think Doflamingo could just break himself out like through any means necessary and then just stitch himself back together like a monster, and then his entire crew's there, right? Like, so he has more than enough reason to break out the other prisoners, and his family's being experimented on. Senior Pink has like got turned into green, well, not him got turned into green blood, but somehow his some kind of juices got extracted, is all I'm gonna put it, right? In that regard, like Doflamingo joining Cross Guild makes a lot more sense than Moria at this point. I have always felt like he wasn't gonna join Blackbeard willingly. Then Moria's just like that kind of like stubborn dude, but especially because like what he killed Absalom from what we understand. But in my opinion, in a lot more of a precarious situation than Doflamingo. Like he's imprisoned underneath an island where the it's controlled by an island man devil fruit, and on top of it right now is an admiral and like a god fighting. I don't know how he escapes and manages to get to Cross Guild one way or the other, because when Perona asked Kobe to like, oh, could you free Moria, like was Kobe gonna like let him free? Like was that what Perona thought? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of interesting because it's like, you know, he is a wanted man that, and now Garp is here. Like I'm pretty sure Garp would also capture Moria too. So one way or the other, it's like Moria sees the surface. There's people that don't want him to go to Cross Guild, and I don't know how he gets past that.
Well, you're also presenting both sides of the equation, which is awesome. We should always look at that. But I think you're also setting up how he does escape, because he's in the perfect situation for this mass distraction that's going on right now, which is the god Garp.
Too much chaos.
Yeah, so much chaos, and you have Perona there, which, you know, she's like the wild card. And then also her just, you know, vocally telling the audience, hey, whoever, not even just Kobe, just whoever, can you know, break Moria out? I think that's setting the seeds for sure. And who knows, maybe we wind up with this little interesting Moria, Kobe, Perona, like on this boat, kind of like this, you know, odd
what a
couple
trio
thing going on. Yeah. I mean, maybe not, but I just think that Moria, one way or another, gets out of here. I mean, he kind of has to, right?
I feel like he will, personally. I think Kobe doing this favor for Perona, I feel like it gives it more validity to me, at least. Because Kobe will keep his promise. He'll definitely break Gecko Moria out. Even though he's a bad guy, even though he's wanted, Kobe at least will let him go. Garp, I'm not too sure. But then again, Garp is just like Luffy, right? Like Luffy, he'll see something, he's like, oh, you made a decision? All right, cool, whatever. And then Luffy just moves on. Like, if Zoro made this same deal, and Zoro would like say, hey, I'm gonna break out, I don't want to use anybody extreme, let's say Senor Pink, just for a weird example. If Zoro made a promise to break out Senor Pink, and Luffy and Senor Pink have some bad blood because he was part of the Don Quixote family, Luffy would just say, oh, well, Zoro made that decision, all right, whatever, and then he'd just go about his day. I see Garp doing the exact same thing.
And he probably did that with Roger once or twice.
Oh, yeah. Just good friends at that point.
Yeah, you know, I agree 100%. Like Moria's, like the fact that Oda reintroduced him like this, it's like he's going to play some significant role. Cross Guild just seems like the perfect place for him to go. I'm curious to know how it gets there, and I think it's going to be exciting. I think the other question that I have that, like, you know, is a little bit of a side tangent is more like a lot of people aside from me thought that Moria would have been killed by Blackbeard and his fruit poached, and possibly even taken, right? And one way or the other, my opinion was always just like Moria's, like, I don't think anybody can really get the proficiency that Moria has with his fruit. So I felt like he is vital to his fruit. And now I'm curious why Blackbeard even like imprisoned him that way, right? Like the way he was talking to Law, right? Like was kind of interesting because he wanted to like procure his fruit, maybe not for himself, but like Moria's, he kept him alive and imprisoned. And I don't know what that means. And I'm also curious about that because that might also dictate where Moria ends up as well, like the importance that Blackbeard saw in Moria and why he focused on him a little bit and why he offered this to join the crew, because that's also after Kuzan's already there. So we might have even, like, the fact is it's like since Kuzan's in the 10th Titanic, like then Moria would have been the 11th technically, right? So but yeah, I'm hoping for we get a lot more Moria because that's a huge, my Shadows theory hinges on him a lot. So excited if he ends up in Cross Guild.
I would not let the Shadow fruit just slip away like that.
Yeah,
like I would so take that.
Yeah,
I think the only reason why they didn't take Moria's fruit could just be headcanon, but this is my guess. It's either one, like you said, he's just so proficient at it that they just want to have Moria himself with the crew, or it could just be that everybody already has a devil fruit and they just can't eat another one.
Yeah, but then he said the thing to Law in the recent chapter where he was just like, you know, I could sell it or I could use it, right? And like
he meant like use the immortal operation surgery, right?
Yeah, but like did he mean like force Law, or like meaning like, because in order to sell it he'd have to kill Law, right?
Oh,
like so I figured that it was like sell it and use it was in the same vein of like killing Law, getting the fruit, using it not himself but giving to someone. Like I was confused about that too.
If you really wanted to, if you were a bad guy, you could probably force Law to give you the immortality surgery. Like his whole crew's there. I would honestly start torturing his crew right in front of Law if I was Blackbeard, you know?
True.
Like, hey, you like this bear? Well, they're an endangered species. Boom, and then you start shooting Beppo or something.
Oh wait, that's probably why Beppo hard forced it because he knew that like that was the situation. He heard Blackbeard saying like, "Oh, the mortal youth searching," and Beppo's like, "Nah, we gotta peace out. He's gonna torture us and make Law use it." That's kind of interesting. I wish they had him say that. Like,
we need
Beppo's
torture
like,
at some point here.
No, we don't.
No,
actually, yeah, we do. We do.
But
we
gotta up those stakes.
I said no, we don't because I'm worried about like where you want that torture to be.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
I don't want to elaborate here. This is Zhoniin's channel, a wholesome place, you know?
Yeah, we have families here, for God's sake.
Family friendly, very welcomed by the One Piece community. One Piece creators love me. This is a great place.
Yeah, all I gotta say is, you know, Sai's favorite character is Vasco Shot, so like that should tell you enough, right, guys?
Vasco Shot's a cool dude, Par. You put me on him.
It's your fault.
Yeah, you won't believe it, Zhoniin. One day I was at a bar, and I met Par for the first time in real life, and we were drinking at a bar, and then he just turned around and be like, he rubbed his hands and he said, "I'm feeling like Vasco Shot right now." And I was like,
absolutely not.
I don't know what that means.
Not me looking at this as an opportunity to change the narrative, and then you switch. Like, listen, Zhoniin, real quick. He put up on a thumbnail that Vasco Shot's my favorite character. I'm like, yo, what are you doing?
It is. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say.
Jesus.
I'm not a liar, Zhoniin, you know?
Yeah, you got to take that video down for misinformation. I forget the other reason you could take down a video for, like, personal information being exposed.
Yeah. Sexual deviancy.
Oh, no.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about the 3 ancient weapons. And I got my boy Sai Parvision with me.
What's up?
How you guys doing?
So, the 3 ancient weapons. We've got Poseidon, Uranus, and Pluton. And just to quickly go over them for anybody who's confused, Pluton is an ancient battleship that was allegedly constructed sometime during the Void Century on Water 7. And now, after all that time, it is currently under Wano. And it cannot leave Wano unless the surrounding barrier around it comes down. So we know where that is. We've got Poseidon, who is just straight up Shirahoshi. I don't think it's ever like fully explained what this is, but in my opinion, or at least the implication that I see it as, is that Shirahoshi was born with some kind of special like hockey, inherent like voice of all things type thing. I assume it boils down to hockey, where she essentially has the ability to communicate with the Sea Kings. And I guess they're like compelled to be subservient to her. This is also another ability that existed during the Void Century with another mermaid princess at that time. And I guess Shirahoshi is the second since then to have this ability. And then allegedly. All of this is allegedly. And then we have Uranus, which is the least explained of the 3. But in my opinion, I think we have already seen Uranus. It was in chapter 1060. And I think it was the device or the thing that is in the sky that rains down lasers on the Lugia and destroys it. Partly why I think this is because, I mean, that thing is powerful enough to be an ancient weapon, first of all, but also because, you know, these ancient weapons are named after gods. Pluto being the underworld god, Poseidon, ruler of the sea, and then Uranus is, or was the personification of the sky. So that makes sense, you know, in the sky, you see where the others, their realms. So now that we've got that out of the way, let me show you guys something real quick, because what if I told you that we have already seen what the ancient weapons look like? Check this out. This is a cover story from Enel, and it's when he's looking at some of the, I guess you could call these hieroglyphics within the moon. And I think that the 3 things that we see here are the ancient weapons. So down there on the bottom right is what I think represents Poseidon. That's like the Sea Kings. And then we see 2 other distinct things here. So over to the left, we see this big green thing that looks like a ship to me, right? Or could be something else. I think this is what Pluton looks like. And then on top of that, in the sky above it, I think that's Uranus. What do you guys think about that?
I definitely heard, like, seen people try to associate this with various, like, use this same source to justify multiple different meanings. One of my favorite ones to get out of the way, though, is like the weird thing for me is the green thing, because it's like, yeah, it's a ship, but like someone said something to me, and ever since they said that, like, I cannot unsee it, which is that green thing looks exactly like the couches that the Gorosei sit on. Like, it's literally like 1-to-1. If you look at the couches And ever since he said that, I'm like, maybe this is like symbolic of something else. Maybe like, like maybe those guys sit at the power or whatever. And I know that's goofy, but like if you look at the Gorsei's couches, then it's like, wait, this guy isn't that crazy. But as far as like the ancient weapons and this being related to them, I definitely like see that. I think someone else brought the point that like, the 16 lasers that came down with Lucia, and you look up at that circle that is there, like the half circle, I think in the picture, that's what you're referring to when you said Uranus, right? Yeah, so like they pointed out that like I think we see 8 like points on it, like 8 bulbs, I guess. And so then if you completed the entire circle, it would be 16. So then you'd get like a entire, device. As far as like the mother frame and then Uranus connection, I do see a route where that is. I think a lot of people have been, at least when the chapter ended, debating on what mother frame like truly encompassed. And some people, I don't even know if this is the right word, like exonerated Uranus from being involved in that. But from my standpoint, I kind of looked at it like there's like 2 parts, where like Vegapunk provided a part and the world government had another part. So like and it makes the most sense that like Vegapunk provided the power source, which is like tied to Einstein and the atomic bomb, and he designed the mechanism of action like behind it, but he didn't necessarily initially design the atomic bomb. That was like a group like effort between a bunch of people that the government was like spearheading essentially. And so if you like parallel that to like the real world or to the One Piece world, then it's like, the world government has this separate thing, whether it's from the Void Century or something they had made prior by other scientists, because we do know that they did have a bunch of scientists like from the legendary Iron Giant time. Like they've always had scientists. Even Punk Hazard is a remnant of like their scientific experimentation, but that apparently has gone on for centuries. And so I kind of look at that like, yeah, maybe Vegapunk provided the energy source, and that above thing is what like the mother frame that they're discussing. Like there's so many ways you could talk about it. The Sea King one is interesting to me because it's like, to me, when I look at that directly looks like Nola and the lobster that was on the Emperor Cloud in Skypiea. So like there was a giant lobster named Kami, or like on its face it had written Kami, and then there was a giant lizard thing that looked exactly like that was Nola, or Kashigami in the past. And Kashigami was probably from the Void Century, because when you look at how old Nola is in our timeline and how big Nola is, Nola was born 400 years ago and is like comparable in size to Kashigami, and Kashigami was that size 400 years ago. So like that would mean that 400 years ago the Kashigami, that giant lizard, was born in. So it's interesting that they have this drawing on the moon. So like I have a few theories about why these drawings are interesting, because we in this cover story, Oda does a weird like thing with time, and he kind of not scuffs, that's not the right word, like he kind of hides like what time is in this thing. So it's like we don't know if the moon was built on the earth or not, and that's something I actually talked about in my Void Century Uranus video. But as far as what you were saying, I agree, like for the most part, that this thing I feel like there's some kind of connection here. Oda drew something here for sure. But yeah, I'm curious what Sai has to say though.
Yeah, it's funny because like I do look at this and I'm like, okay, this is probably the 3 ancient weapons, but it's like Par said, like the Nola thing and the giant like lobster. I feel like those are very like Skypiea. Like they're huge Skypiea references that would convince Enel that Burka came from the moon and went to Earth, which is like what the whole cover story is about. Like Enel, it's like the irony of it. Like Enel killed all the Burkans, and then he went to Skypiea, and then he's like, oh man, I really want to go to the moon. And then he gets there, and then he sees these moon hieroglyphics, and then he realizes that his people, or the people on the moon, were the Burkans that he slaughtered, and then they wanted to go to Earth. So it's kind of like an endless cycle of, oh man, he messed up. Or not endless cycle, but it's a whole cycle that gets completed here. But as far as the ancient weapon part, I do see it. I see the Sea Kings. I see the random ship that's on Earth, and then I see, you know, the ship they use to go from the moon all the way to Earth. And it's like, yeah, if you really like break it down, those would be the 3 ancient weapons. As far as what that green blob that the people on Earth are standing on, that could very well be Pluton. You know, maybe Pluton is like the embodiment of Earth, or green vines even. See, if we're looking at the Sea Kings and saying, oh yeah, that's Poseidon's power, and then we're looking at the sky and being like, okay, yeah, beams from the sky, that could be Uranus. What could represent the Earth the best? Well, it could be these green vine monster things. And you know, I'm down for it. I'm down for it.
I just sent you guys the couch on the.
Oh my god, it does look like it.
So yeah,
I like it.
I wonder if it's coincidence or intentional, but yeah, if that is Pluton, it looks very strange. But I guess maybe that's what he's going for. But back to what could be Uranus at the top here. I'm glad that you brought up, Par, about the whole thing about Mother Frame / Mother Flame. You know, at first glance of reading this chapter, it was like, oh, the Mother Frame, it wasn't Uranus. It was actually this new proprietary thing that Vegapunk made. Well, it's like, maybe it actually is just a new power source that he was able to make, because Vegapunk did say that he couldn't replicate the power source that they had back in the Void Center. And I assume that that's what was needed to power Pluton, because also in this chapter, Ivankov says, and I thought it was weird at the time, but now putting it into this context, I think it makes more sense. He says, you know, if this thing that you saw fly over the clouds and destroy an entire nation was a government weapon, then only Vegapunk could have created it. And but what if it were an ancient weapon? And if Ibu were alive since ancient times, it all links up. So it's like, I think it was an ancient weapon, and what Vegapunk did here was replicate like a synthetic power source to power Uranus, because also the whole Mother Flame thing, and I know it says Mother Frame in the official, but you know, as we talked about before, the Japanese fandom think that flame is way more applicable to a more accurate translation. So keep in mind flame. Now look back at the picture on the wall of what allegedly could be Uranus. In the center there, kind of looks like a flame tip.
Yeah.
Oh, it does, huh?
Yeah, it does. It's,
you know,
some people have thought, if you recall at the end of the cover story, this Enel cover story, like Enel ends up powering up this like circular thing, and it powers the entire moon. And we don't necessarily, like, that's a whole separate thing. 'Cause, like, he's not like continuously charging that thing. He just shot it one time, and then now it's going. So it's like, you know, as far as like the Vegapunk ancient weapon thing going on, Sai and I have talked about this on a few of our collabs, where the way I've seen it is that Vegapunk is kind of like a teaser into the ancient weapons. He's basically made the prototypes, or like the pathway towards it. So like when we first got introduced to Vegapunk, we saw mechanized sea beasts, and that's literally just like a few steps away from creating Poseidon. All you have to do is figure out how to make it hereditary and how to make it like controlling giant sea kings, right? And then for me, like I've talked about the 8 air cons and the sky clouds, for those that know like my Pluton, my Uranus Pluton theory, which is like there's something, I think clouds are important or something. Like it's just like the ancient weapons, they're allegedly weapons, but at the end of the day, it's like Shirahoshi doesn't have to be a weapon. She was regarded as either the world's savior or the person who could sink the world. And I think all the weapons were meant for one thing, but then were ultimately used or demonstrated to be very powerful, and that created fear and can be scary. And so like and as far as like the Mother Frame and Mother Flame thing goes, like I it's just weird. Like I don't necessarily know if it's gonna be like a giant laser beam type of thing. So I feel like the world government had like if you remember, this is my brain's confusing a bunch of different things, but like if you remember the anti-Pluton, the anti-Pluton was like this monstrous thing that was meant to take down Pluton, and that was something that the world government was trying to get. Like they were directly in contact with a bunch of people to get that, and they made it as a counter weapon. And I almost wonder if that counter weapon is something that they had and Vegapunk provided this power source for. And going back to like the pathways to the ancient weapons, like Vegapunk probably, if once we end up revealing all of the ancient weapons, where we could probably go back to Egghead and see like, oh, Vegapunk made this, and he was like recreating this old tech, he just didn't know what it was. And so whether it's the anti-gravity thing, like there's so much on Egghead, the holograms, like there's so many things there that if you just like made one level crazier, they could be ancient weapons. Like there's so many different things, and like I feel like it makes the most sense that Vegapunk didn't make the ancient weapon, but the world government had something that could spin his product or his creation into an evil way. And I think the anti-Pluton thing is something that I'm curious about, because that is something we know the world government was chasing, and maybe it was because they were trying to figure out how to make that power source, right? Like maybe the blueprints had that, and you know, Frankie ended up burning them, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if it's something there. Maybe if they had that, they wouldn't have needed Vegapunk in the first place. Maybe it's something on this far like that. Maybe when they put the CP9 in Water 7, it was in conjunction with like, hey, maybe we can use this as a failsafe, because at the end of the day, something that they did say that I'm still like confused about, not confused, but like curious about, is that they said they need to test it. And I'm like, I feel like you should know if this thing like works or not, but they needed to test it. And that was something that was like, that changes a lot for me. The fact that they didn't know what they had was capable of what they wanted, and they needed to test run it like that. So it's like, do they not know what the ancient weapon like looked like? Did they not know like the full context of it? There's a few intricate details that Oda slid into the, like, especially the last chapter, that I'm like, interesting.
As far as ancient weapons, the one thing I want to say or throw out there is I think all the ancient weapons are going to be alive. I'm kind of on that boat, and this is gonna sound harebrained, and I understand it, but hear me out. When we were in Wano and we had the Straw Hats talking about Pluton, Shinobu was eavesdropping during the conversation.
I know this is my favorite thing. I was broken record about this.
I saw this when I first read the chapter, and I was like, wait, I think there's something here. This could be just a meme, but I feel like it could hold some plausibility, and I'm kind of beating around the bush, but Shinobu's listening to the Straw Hats talking about Pluton, and then she butts into the conversation, and then she says, she says, do you think all ancient weapons are mature women? Because that's like her shtick. She always goes along with mature woman this, mature woman that. But when she said that the ancient weapons are mature women, I was like, wait a minute, maybe there's something here, because technically Hoshi's, well, not mature, but she's a woman. So it's like, wait, what are the chances are that Pluton and Uranus are both women as well?
Yeah, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Once again, thank you, Par and Sai, coming along for another legit One Piece discussion, deep dive, inside baseball. Appreciate it, guys.
Another week breakdown.
Hey.
Yeah, subscribe to Sai, subscribe to Par, do not subscribe to me. You know the deal.
Subscribe to Zhoniin.
Never do that. And yeah, peace out, guys. So in my opinion, in chapter 1086, which is the latest chapter, I think it was straight up confirmed that Imu had the perpetual youth surgery performed on her, or them. Because we see in the chapter, Ivankov, speaking to Dragon and Sabo, says, "It is said that the means to create everlasting life exist in this world. Well, someone had to have proved it. Someone out there has been living for ages and ages without dying." So that's the setup there. And today I'm going to be talking about, aside from Imu, who are the other immortal characters secretly residing in One Piece? I've got Par Vision with me. Who better than to talk about this with? What's up, Par?
What's up, Zhoniin? What's up, everyone listening? Yeah, I mean, this is a fun topic to talk about, because it's been, you read the scans and everything, and I remember when I first read these, I was like, Ivankov's one of us. He's reading, he's like spitting out theories right now. It was pretty funny when he said that, and then the officials came out, and it changed a little bit in my understanding of the scope of this. But yeah, do you have any ideas for the other characters? Because I have a few. I mean, I talked about some in the past, but I'm curious if you had any coming into this.
Oh, I do. We've actually talked about this before, so I'm just going to be like a broken record here. But I was saying this when we first saw Imu's eyes. The eyes immediately resembled that of Mihawk's. And
Right.
before that, we just had theories about Mihawk because he was kind of based on Dracula, but he's kind of based on a whole bunch of stuff. When I started hearing theories about him being immortal, I was like, okay, sure. I don't know why he's immortal, but okay, he is. Now that we see that Emu is pretty much being confirmed to be immortal here by Ivankov, I don't think this is like an unreliable narrator. I think it's straight up being confirmed here without outright being said. I think Mihawk has had the same thing performed on him. And it's like, why? Why has he had that performed on him? And if he did, then that means that that was the last user of the Ope Ope no Mi before Law ate it. Like when those random dudes had it back in Law's flashback, when they said that they can get like 500 billion for it or something. Let me also just... Let me just 5 billion. Yeah, 500 billion. Oh my god. Let me just clarify real quick for anyone who's just confused or I don't know, you just forget. Law's devil fruit, the Ope Ope no Mi, was said by Doflamingo to have like an ultimate secret ability where they could, using the fruit's power, make someone else just straight up immortal. Not immortal like where nothing could kill them, like they could survive a supernova or something. They just, at least the way that I see it, they just can never die via like growing old. Like they always will stay the same age. They can just live perpetually. But if you like cut their head off, they'll die. But aside from that, they'll just keep living in perpetuity. Is that the way that you see it?
I guess so. It's so confusing because like prior to this, we were thinking like perpetual youth, right? And now we see the officials and even the scans saying like everlasting life. Like in terms of if you can you kill them, right? Like I don't know, does it stop them from aging? Because that's a whole separate context. And I bring that up specifically because in Dressrosa, right, like when they brought up the Ope Ope no Mi's ultimate power, they said like this is like rumors, and you know, you mentioned like unreliable narrator here. We still don't know like where Doflamingo or Treble got that information. I wonder because we actually got introduced to something like we didn't really get the full scope of. Sugar's devil fruit allowed you to, what was said was, freeze like your age in time, and that essentially would be perpetual youth, would not? And like you could kill Sugar, right? Like you could. So I wonder what the context of is in that regard, because like the current timeline Emu is the original Emu. I guess like the biggest question is it from Law's fruit, or is that a way for Oda to introduce that topic? Because I think that ultimately changes the scope of things, right? You were bringing up the topic of Mihawk. I had an opposing direction last time you brought it up, and my line of logic still has a different direction. But if you were to say that he had that thing and it tied it to the Ope Ope no Mi, that makes the Ope Ope no Mi like almost like pivotal to the entire One Piece storyline. And I wonder if Oda's gonna go that route, considering Sugar exists, where that power exists completely separate of Law. And in that light, maybe there's like a completely separate thing that allows you to get like the perpetual youth aside from that. And whether Mihawk has it or not is interesting, because we've seen Mihawk age. And then I also think that his Seraphim has the star eyes and also the double ringed eyes that Emu has. And when it comes to the ringed eyes, then we have characters like Zunisha. Zunisha has those ringed eyes as well.
Zunisha. I'm glad you brought him up, because he is one of the other characters who I think for sure had the perpetual youth surgery as well. Mainly because, like you said, the eyes, they have like the same eyes as Emu and Mihawk, although different colors. Which is, I don't know why. Maybe it has something to do with inherent personalities, or I don't know, their morality, where it leans or whatever. But Zunisha is for sure at least 800 years old, similar to Emu. So there could have been hot potato with the Ope Ope no Mi back in the day and the youth surgery being performed.
Yeah, like in terms of like characters that could have it outside of it, I think the double ringed eyes is kind of significant. One thing that I thought was really interesting for 1086 was Oda decided to hide Figarland's eyes with the sunglasses, and I'm like, And we've also Doflamingo, his eyes are also covered, and in his seraphim, and I'm like, why is Oda stopping us from seeing these eyes right now? And hey, maybe you're onto something with that, because maybe the celestial dragons have some kind of like, I don't know, some kind of tie into that, given that there's apparently the descendant of Emu, I guess. And if we're looking at the Gorosei, and if we're to play with the idea that they also are immortal, right? Like, do you feel, in terms of other characters that were that have the not perpetual youth because they're old, but like, are they from the Void Century in your opinion?
See, I used to think that they were, and I thought that there was some alternate means of staying alive that was different from the Opi Opi no Mi. But then, maybe you remember this, they, in some chapter, it was relatively recently, within the last year or so, they like say like the Gorosei when they're referring to something like in the past.
Ooh.
You know, and that, damn it, I just forget exactly what they said and what chapter it was, but they say like when they're talking about the past, it might have been around the time when the Nika reveal was happening.
1037.
It might have been. So you know what I'm talking about, and they say like the Gorosei did this or the Gorosei said that, and it's like, what does that mean? It's like,
so are you referring to, they're talking about when they erased the name of the fruit, that chapter?
I guess that's it, because they refer to the Gorosei in the third person.
Okay, I don't have the Japanese for it, because maybe they do, but the officials apparently, like, so they say it's impossible that the fruit's only a legend now, even to us, as not awakened for centuries upon centuries. And then the Saint Shepherd Jupiter says, then why would the world government bother to give that one specific devil fruit another name, right? So is that the part where you're saying they refer to the Gorosei in third person, or the world government in third person?
That might have been maybe the unofficials that I was reading, maybe they said Gorosei, but it kind of threw me off when they said that, because I was like, okay, so I guess they're not the original Gorosei, because I just assumed that they were, but they're just somehow staying alive in an alternate way.
No, I mean, I like, even without that, like, I think what you're talking about does kind of make sense, right? Like, for example, when Nika does get revealed, and it's like that double spread where Nika's Luffy in the moon, and then on the right side they're talking about it like so they say like, so we've lost an elite agent and made Kaido angry. What was the point, right? Like, so we have a Gorosei guy asking that, and then Saint Saturn responds, what if I told you that there was a potential future that would make us beg for this outcome? It is always better to eliminate dangerous variables. And it's like, even in that conversation, right, if they've been together for 800 years, why are they talking to each other like that? You know what I mean? Like, it almost seems like Saint Saturn has some kind of like, not priority, but seniority, I guess, in terms of like, young one, you didn't see this, like, this is a future you weren't privy to, you know what I mean? And maybe Saint Saturn has like access to like older, or is able to tap into, because he's the science defense person, I guess, and so maybe he knows a part of the world government that whoever was talking to him doesn't know, right? And that's I'm still wondering, like, is Figarland, like, the Garling, is he from the original like the original 20, or is he a descendant, right? Even if you want to say they are from our current timeline, then we have Kureha, who's like 140. And so, like, are these guys older than Kureha, or are they the same age? Is Kureha a former, like, I don't even know. Like, I was gonna joke and say like, maybe Kureha used to be Emu, but like, Kureha is a Nerona dynasty, like, just joking around, but like, she knew about the Will of D, right? Like, she was the first person that brought it up, and she seemed to know the definition. That Emu here is like, these whippersnappers don't know about the Will of D, whilst talking as a child. So it's like, I don't know.
Like, one of her recurring things is like, hey, you want to know how I stay so young, or how I live so long, or whatever,
right?
And she never says it. So that could explain how others, aside from the Opi Opi no Mi, have lived so long, or are technically immortal, or whatever. Because Kureha's part in the story definitely isn't over. She still has some things to reveal. there's probably some importance to her, aside from, you know, just being Chopper's, like, mentor. But aside from Kureha, the other person, or at least that we've seen so far, that for sure, at least in my opinion, has, like, the other possible perpetual youth surgery recipient eyes, is that of Hakuba. Like, Hakuba, the split personality that exists inside of Cavendish. And that leads to, like, why? Why does he have the perpetual youth surgery performed on him of all the characters? Such, like, an ancillary character. And it's like, I guess Hakuba is, like, the main personality, since if he does, or if he did have the surgery performed on him, he predominantly has the eyes and Cavendish doesn't. And I don't want to go into even more speculation, talking about things that we don't know or don't nearly have enough information about, but at least right now, it seems like those are the 4 characters that have very likely had the surgery performed on them. It's like Emu, Mihawk, Zunisha, and Hakuba. And I just don't know why, but I don't want to take up any more of Parvision's time here. So thank you so much for coming on the channel, Par.
Thank you, Zhoniin's community, and Zhoniin for bringing me on this call. Had a lot of fun.
But of course, anytime, and we'll probably do a couple more of these during the break week if you are available. But yeah, subscribe to Parvision if you guys haven't already. He does this in pretty much every video that he releases. So if you want those deep dive, long, thoughtful breakdowns, please check out his channel, because I definitely don't do them. I'm more of the get to the meat of the stuff, leaving you wanting to know more, which I definitely don't get into. So that's what Par is for. Absolutely. And yeah, thanks again. See you guys. So in chapter 1076, we saw Shanks back in the story, which
for the first time in years. Feels like.
The first time in 1 year. It's always exciting.
More often than beforehand.
Oh yeah, I'm loving it. You can't give me enough Shanks at this point. Like, anything, I'll take it.
Building him up for 25 years.
Oh my god. When you say it out loud, it's like that meme where Matt Damon ages rapidly. That's like happening to me.
That's us waiting for Shanks to come back on screen.
Yeah, exactly. Which I assume that we won't, but we'll talk about it anyway. So in this video, we're going to be talking about how powerful Shanks is, because this is something that it's just a part of the One Piece community. If you're in it, one of the rites of passage is talking about how powerful Shanks is, because we really don't know. And it's, you know, really important now because he's seemingly about to fight Kid and the Kid Pirates. Ooh. And on the surface, it seems like, yeah, he's just going to destroy him, right? Because why wouldn't he? So what are your thoughts on this initial matchup? And, you know, also getting into how powerful Shanks could be.
I say this to everybody, but man, what bad luck Kid has. Shanks actually says in the chapter, we were just about to leave. If Kid waited maybe 30 minutes, he might have not ran into Shanks. That is insane to think about. But now that we do have this matchup, the first thought I had in my mind was, well, there goes Kid, right? Because Law, he's fighting Blackbeard. A lot of people are assuming that Blackbeard's going to win. And now we have Kid versus Shanks, and a lot of people, you know, rightfully so, are thinking that Shanks is going to win. But even with that, we saw that Law against Blackbeard, he put out a good showing. His crew showed out, Law showed out, he did some damage, and, you know, I think it was a hard-fought battle. I think we're going to see the same thing here with Shanks. You know, a lot of people don't expect much from Kid. I think Kid has plot armor to some extent, and I think he is going to do well, but in terms of a victory for him, I just personally can't see that.
So you think that we'll see Shanks fight, like, as much as we saw Blackbeard fight Law?
Here's the thing with power scaling, man. It's rough because there's no right or wrong answer, because it's One Piece. Like, anything can happen, right? But because Killer and Kid kind of put emphasis on the fact that Kid hasn't seen Shanks before, and that last time they fought, you know, they didn't make it to him, right? They didn't have the right to see Shanks in person. This can't happen again. Like, Kid's gonna have to see Shanks. It's at that time. He has a 3 billion berry bounty. He helped take down Big Mom. I think Kid is ready for it. Whether, you know, regardless of how well he does, I think he should make it to that Shanks level, even if he's just scraping by, in my opinion.
But do you think, like, we'll literally see on the page, like, Shanks fighting?
If Oda doesn't off-screen this fight, I think we will. I think there exists a reality out there where we do see Kid and Shanks clashing. Will the sky split? Most likely not. But then again, Kid does have Conqueror's Haki. He has Conqueror's Haki. We haven't seen it yet, but we know he has it. So who knows? Maybe he does actually split the sky. And if that happens, the fan base, for better or worse, it's going to go crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot of people like Kid for some reason.
It's just the way that he's been portrayed. People love Law. People will fight fight to the death for Law, but that's because we've been with him for, I think, almost 10 years now. He's almost like a Nakama at this point. He's been with us for so dang long. Kid hasn't had that same fortune. We saw him in bits and pieces. We see him lose a lot. We hear that he gets off-screened a lot, and then we show up to Wano when the guy's missing an arm. And he's like, yeah, by the way, the red hair pirates took my arm. Like, he just isn't renowned for his W's, I think is the main problem. Yeah.
Yes, that is very true. And maybe that could be painting the narrative here of like why Law and Kid are fighting Blackbeard and Shanks, because it's like, yeah, they just had this huge victory, this huge moment, taking down somebody they had no business taking down. Like, they were real life underdogs. Like, there was
they really were.
Most of the fandom did not think they were
so
gonna win
crazy.
that. Yeah, go back and read the comments on like chapter reviews of any videos. Everybody, not everybody, but majority.
The reason why Law and Kid are such an upset victory almost is because when you think about the timeline of One Piece, about a month ago, at least 2 months at most, Law got no diffed by Doflamingo.
Yes.
Like that is the gravity of the situation here. Law went from losing to Doflamingo to beating Big Mom in the span of 2 months. That is insane to think about.
Yeah, they're like, in real life, growth like that is like once in a lifetime.
That's like 10,000% stock increase just out of nowhere.
So it's like they're so powerful together that they're equivalent to like a Kaido or a Big Mom. But when they're by themselves, not so much. And since they're coming off of that huge big victory, now they're, suddenly coming into the realization that like, oh, we're in over our head at this point.
These are the Yonko.
Yeah, these are like, we can't solo these guys. So, and Shanks seemingly is the most powerful pirate at this point in the verse. It just seems that way to me, at least.
Yeah, the fan base is kind of like gravitated towards that answer that Shanks is probably top 3, if not number 1.
Like, he has so many feats without having any feats. It's really wild. Like, it's so many just stories. Okay, so first of all, he allegedly stopped Kaido from coming to Marineford. We don't know what happened with that. We could speculate about it for months. You could say that he scared Kaido.
Fight? Did he talk him?
Yeah, we don't know, but that is technically a Shanks feat. Shanks's biggest feat, I don't know, it's personal preference, whatever you think his biggest one is, but I think his biggest is clashing with Akainu, right?
Yeah, he stopped it with his sword, like no hockey on that blade whatsoever. He's just straight chilling. Yeah. He just unsheathed it, and then he just stopped the magma attack.
And Akainu didn't want the smoke. He kind of just stood there.
He stood there, he backed up a little bit, he was like, oh, Akagami.
So we've got that, and then aside from the hype and him meeting with the Gorosei, I mean, that could go into him being a celestial dragon, but there's some kind of respect there. And then recently we just talked about him taking down Green Bull with just Conqueror's lightning or whatever he did. We still don't fully know.
Conqueror's clash. I don't even know what that was.
He I don't know. He did drive by and conquer something.
Have you read the 4 billion booklet from Film Red?
No.
It talks a little bit about Shanks's powers too.
Ooh.
About how Shanks he can light his sword on fire, which we know he can do from Film Red and from the booklet that Oda provided. And we also know that Shanks's haki is so strong, it can actually negate other people's haki.
Oh, yes, I did read that.
There's not like a good name for it, but I think people call it cancellation haki.
Oh my
And that's something that really only Shanks has been able to have so far. So even that, it's like just the concept of having almost a 4th haki power out of nowhere is insane.
Wow. Oh my god, I totally forgot that I had read that.
I guess he needs something, right? Because we have all the other Yonko, like Luffy has the Sun God Nika fruit, Blackbeard has the Darkness fruit, Big Mom and Kaido, we had the Seryu, and then we also had the Soul fruit. Shanks had to have something in his arsenal to compete. Like, his haki has to be insane to stand at that level with no extra, powers.
Yeah, wow. It's like having a built-in ability to just shut down haki. That's incredible. And we really haven't seen that in the series yet. It's always been about shutting down devil fruits. Never about shutting down haki. Oh my god. And it's like, how far can Shanks see into the future?
I would imagine he possesses every advanced trait of haki out there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if when we get to this fight, we'll see so many crazy haki feats. Like, I mean, Kaido even mentioned it when he was fighting Luffy, saying, hey, like, devil fruits are cool and all, but haki is the way to go.
And I think we're about
to have that on display.
Yeah, then goes on to get defeated by a devil fruit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was coded in haki, but still, it wasn't
he had Rio in the last attack.
It wasn't definitively proving Kaido's point, though. Like, if Luffy was just like, all right, goes back to base form, and then coats a fist, and then knocks him out with it. Yeah.
I think the matchup between Shanks and Kid is going to be rough. And I say this because of the Big Mom fight and how Kid fought Big Mom and Kaido. Mainly because when Kid fought them, his attacks usually boil down to gathering metal, turn into a big monster, and then attack the target. And that works really well for Big Mom and Kaido, who are the size of a giant almost. But when you're trying to like land, you know, Coronado on Shanks, who can easily just dodge it, it's, I don't know, like I feel like Shanks' agility is also way up there in the verse to where a lot of Kid's attack might not even reach Shanks. Like he'll just dodge it easily.
Yeah, I assume he's doing like, you know, Bleach, Shunpo, and Dragon Ball Z stuff where he's just teleporting pretty much.
Yeah, like dancing around the Kamehameha.
Yeah,
like
I fully
Shanks
expect him
normally
to do
shouldn't
that.
get hit by a lot of these attacks. Big Mom and Kaido, like they're big, they probably can't dodge most of it. They want to tank it head on, easy, fine, whatever. Shanks, like, nah, dude, this guy's nimble. We've never seen Kid fight anybody his size, really.
Yeah, I guess we haven't. Yeah, Shanks is more normal, I guess. He is still pretty tall, but for the One Piece world, I guess he's not too bad.
Yeah, it could be worse.
The Kamusari. Probably my favorite attack in the series. Ever since I saw Roger do that to Odin, I was just in love. Like, I have like a figure of that sequence that I like it so much.
The Kamusari?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Divine
Oh, snap.
Departure. So this attack, obviously we just talked about, we saw Roger do it. And at that time, I assumed that that's probably the highest level of Conqueror's Hockey, right? Or at least the offensive aspect of it. Or, you know, the highest application of it.
Yeah,
You know, I'm sure
I
he could
know what you
probably
mean.
destroy the earth if he really wanted to. But yeah, like firing off just Conqueror Hockey wave at you. Apparently, this is a thing that anybody could do, essentially, because Shanks is like 1-for-1 recreating this move. So I guess if you just have like that understanding of Conqueror Hockey and you could just create a freaking projectile out of it, you could do this move. And also, we knew that Shanks could do this for years, actually, because in the freaking video games he does this. Like in Pirate Warriors, he does the Kamusari, but he does more than that. Which goes back to the beginning of this video. Who Par or Side, you said that Shanks has like an ultimate move that we haven't seen.
Oh yeah, I was just
Yeah, it makes sense that he
yeah. Parting the Red Sea divine departure. It just makes sense. Like when we got these panels, the moment Shanks said for his ally ships to move, I like paused and I was like, wait a moment. Is he gonna split the sea? And then and then he didn't, but then I was like, oh, we'll save that for the last saga. You know,
I like to imagine his final attack would be like Jujutsu Kaisen, where he just starts naming colors. He's like, oh, red, and he just like destroys everything in front of him.
100%.
Oh, I
think that'd be
say
dope.
like Ichibei from Bleach.
Oh,
Where
from
he-
Bleach. I mean, hey, if
Just
Shanks
renames
has
everything.
godly techniques like that, I would not be surprised.
He will. He will.
But okay, so we
Ooh,
might
what
have
if all of his
seen-
attacks are named after celestial dragons?
Oh, that could be counterintuitive because. Oh no! In honor to them, that would be good. That would be. The
I mean,
twist.
because there's a lot of theories that he's a celestial, and then he even shows up to Rijwa like it's nobody's business. Like, what if he just starts landing attacks like not the Don Quixote people? Oh yeah, wait, no, he's the uncle of Doflamingo, Homing,
Yeah.
right?
Homing. Yeah,
Oh wait, no, that's Mostgard. That's most. There's so many
I would
celestial
see
dragons. Nobody
Shanks
cares about these guys.
doing
Homing,
more
he
like
just shoots a sword and it follows people. That'd be kind of cool.
or like planetary moves, like it's Saturn, Venus, Mars, like those kinds
true.
of levels of attacks.
Yeah, we could see
That'd
that
be good,
like
too.
that.
Yeah.
But it's
That'd be sick.
possible that we may have already seen what Shanks' ultimate move is, or one of his ultimates, because if it is following the game, because like I said, he does the Kamusari in the game years before he did in the manga. His ultimate attack in the game is like he thrusts his sword into the ground, like King Arthur or something, and then like Conqueror's Hockey energy like plumes out of the ground, like all around him, and like I mean, I'll have it in the video, I'll give it to my editor, but it looks insane. So like if he is even capable of that, then yeah, for sure, we're in for like something insane. Like this is like island leveling stuff.
I mean, what? Like Sabo can do that too with his dragon's breath, where he just like plucks his hands into the ground and then
Yeah,
like
it's kind of
explodes
like
the
that.
entire arena in
Yeah.
Dressrosa.
It's
Dragon's
essentially
breath.
that.
It's
yeah.
like that, but with Conqueror's Hockey.
Yeah. 100%. When you were asking about like the Conqueror's level that Roger had, right, and like the combative potential, I like my viewers know that I have like this huge Conquerors hockey agenda where it's like I think it's more nuanced than just combative stuff. I think that there's like a level of what Sai was saying where it's like you could command something. I think at the end of the day, Conquerors is like a command kind of thing of you commanding things. And even in that moment when Sabo blew up this Coliseum stadium, he sensed a core in the stadium and then targeted that and exploded that. And that was similar to like what Zoro was doing in Arabasta. As early as that, he was sensing like the soul of an object, the breath of an object. And I think when you were saying like island level, I think that these powers are going to make it to the level of like Whitebeard can destroy the planet. But yeah, like if someone willed it and if someone had the enough desire to obviously a select few characters, they would be able to get to that state where they could just recreate a marine, when Whitebeard like shattered Marineford and you saw the tectonic plates tilting. I think it makes sense that like at the end stages, if Emu or maybe the Gorosei, like those kinds of characters can pull out those things, I think it would make a lot of sense. And like these moments that we're getting at the beginning of the last saga should play as appetizers. Like these are appetizers. Like Luffy just came off of pre-last saga destroying an island with a single punch, right? That's what he was apparently capable of if the island didn't move out of the way. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get to a place where, we need to create other dimensions, right? Like Film Red teased that idea. And something important about that, like if we're talking about third external sources to the manga, is the guy who directed Film Red knows the ending of One Piece. Like he knows it. Oda told him. So it's like he's not going to spoil the ending. But if anything felt foreign to you in that movie, it might be because to him, it's not foreign because he knows what the ending looks like, right? And in that movie, they come in and Shanks Space movie, they come in and go to another dimension. They have like an otherworldly fight in another dimension. And I could see One Piece going there. We already have dimension stuff. So, the sky's the limit, but not with One Piece. I think it's like the universe, like we're going to go to like Big Bang level. I don't even know what we're going to do with One Piece. It's exciting though, for sure.
It's going to be like when Broly's fighting Gogeta. They just pop into an alternate dimension for like a split second. That's how hard they're clashing.
Yeah. 100%.
But at least Oda will explain what's going on.
Hopefully. I mean, I like to think like in an SBS, he'll be like, well, this is what that dimension is. Like, here's how we created it.
At least in SBS. It's like, I forgot I did that.
Yeah.
No big deal, guys.
I have no worries about that because even with hockey, right, he drip fed us that. Like in the pre-time skip was that every single time we're about to learn a concept, you can look back at countless panels and be like, yeah, that's what happened right there. And it was like a small thing that we didn't fully understand. We just accepted and then we moved on and then we learned about it. And I think Oda's going to do that. And it makes sense with like the pacing that he has right now and the amount of knowledge that we're learning, that like these new concepts won't feel foreign to us and it'll feel like fairly normal, unlike when power creeping happens in other series, not to name a few of them, but it happens in there and other people don't like it. But in One Piece, I trust in Oda. I trust.
When One Piece goes on a power creep, they go on a power creep. Like Kid being one shot at 3 billion is pretty insane. Like Oda raised the roof in terms of power scaling. And I'm really curious to see where it goes. Because we saw this happen in Wano, right? Luffy got one tapped and then he got back up. And then by the end of that same arc, like I think 150 chapters later, Luffy is that guy now. He can go against the guy that one tapped him. That's how strong he got. So I wonder how this will raise the stakes for the rest of the series. Like, will Sanji get to somewhat this level? Because obviously Sanji fought Queen. Will Zoro get up here because Zoro did also fight Kaido a little bit? It's crazy to think about that, right? Like by the end of the series, we might have, Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei being able to withstand this divine departure and get back up. Whereas right now, I don't think they can because, Kid, he's not exactly a weak guy, right?
Yeah.
His durability's up there, but he's still got one tapped. And that's where we have to be by the end of the series. So by the end of the series, a majority of the Straw Hats are going to be that guy. While we won't be Shanks level, we're going to be like around it at least.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least Red Hair Crew level.
I think
like-
Luffy's gonna dwarf it. I think what I'm most excited to see is where Ben Beckman's at. Because if it doesn't make sense to me if Ben Beckman isn't close to this, right? I feel like it would make more sense if Ben Beckman was not relative to Shanks, obviously, but like not absurdly below, you know? And if that's the case, then what about Lucky Roo? What about Yasop, right? Like, are they also absurdly strong? Because then it's like everybody's gonna be there. This is the red-haired pirates crew. They were known as like the most balanced
and they have the most tame character designs. Like half the red-haired pirates look like regular people. So I'm really curious to see how they're gonna fight. Right?
Yeah.
At least for like Queen, like what? He turns into a Brachiosaurus and then he like shoots his neck at people like poop. We have King, who's a Lunarian. Kaido's a giant dragon. And then we have Lucky Roo, just a big dude that eats meat. Ben Beckman, a guy with the regular gun. Yasop, a dude with a bandana and a gun. It's like these are average dads just coming around, like rolling up the block, and they're endgame fighters. Like, how are they going to fight? That's all unique. I'm so curious to see how Oda's going to pull that off.
It's that dad strength.
It's always
It's
the normal
dad
people.
strength.
All right, today I want to talk about Imu, the shadow ruler of the world government and the leader of the Gorosei. So we all have our theories as to what this character is, what they could be planning, but I think I have it figured it out. And I didn't discover this, of course, myself. This was brought to light like 2 years ago by the GOAT Uniron, Japanese YouTuber who wears a Daft Punk mask. But he told me, well, all of us, about the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, which is, you know, a story that's over 1,000 years old in Japan. They don't even know who wrote this thing, but it's a story about the Moon Princess. And that's pretty interesting, right? Because we've seen this play out in other animes. Sailor Moon, Naruto is the most famous example. They're all kind of chasing the same dragon here with the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, in my opinion at least, because I think we already see it happening in One Piece. And yes, this is leading to Imu being a woman. It is not a man, in my opinion. It is straight up woman, because she herself, I guess, could be considered the princess of the moon, or one of the moons of the One Piece world, as Ohara, not the YouTuber, Ohara, the actual place, the scholar, showed us that there are multiple satellite things around the world of One Piece. So it seems like Imu, in theory, could be the final princess that Luffy has to save, but not save her from a war-torn country or a dictatorship, has to save her from herself. But let me quickly just tell you what the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter is. So the story details the life of Kaguya Hime, a princess from the moon who was discovered as a baby inside the stalk of a glowing bamboo plant. After she grows, her beauty attracts 5 suitors seeking her hand in marriage, who she turns away by challenging them each with an impossible task. She later attracts the affection of the Emperor of Japan, and at the tale's end, Kaguya Hime reveals her celestial origins and returns to the moon. The story is also known as the Tale of Princess Kaguya. So, right there, a lot of things to draw away. 5 suitors. Gorosei. They are paralleling to that. That's who the Gorosei are. They are the 5 defectors of the kingdoms that we've already seen. We already speculated about. Samurai Gandhi clearly comes from Wano. There's no other place he can come from. Unless he's like, I don't know, in Wano Face or something. But I'm pretty sure he comes from there. And then, other than that, we have her falling in love with the Emperor of Japan. And in my opinion, I think in the One Piece story, this was Joy Boy. And before I let you guys talk, I think we've also seen parallels to this throughout the series. Through Enel, his story, his 5 disciples, what he did. Doflamingo, what he did, coming down from heaven to the normal people, taking over with his 5 disciples. And as for the love story, I think we've seen that paralleled between Sanji and Pudding. And I'll go more into that, but let me hear you guys' thoughts on this.
I love the Kaguya route. It just makes sense that Oda includes it. Like, it's such a like you mentioned, it's an historical like story at this point that is included in so many Japanese fictions, some popular ones, and though the execution of their version of it may not be everyone's favorite, I feel like Oda probably has his head on straight with this. And so like I came to a similar conclusion to give insight, and I have the thumbnail made for it. I haven't put out the video yet, where I'm not gonna even reference the Kaguya thing in this thing, but the princess route, I think like what you said, like that's the last princess Luffy has to save. What I was saying is in this video, I think I told Randy Troy it was on stream, was that I think that all the princesses throughout the entire story, you can combine like their primary elements, and that's probably what Imu has gone through. And the most important one at the moment, well, you know, Vivi obviously, but Bonnie's probably the most important one to me in that regard, where Bonnie's technically the last Saga's princess that got introduced at the very beginning of the last saga, similar to the Alabasta arc with Vivi, right? And so with the reason why that's important is because Bonnie has beef with Vegapunk. Vegapunk is this super advanced place that you know, obviously she can appreciate a lot of those things, but she does not forgive what he did to her father. And that trauma that she has gone through to see her dad cloned and cyborged and was bastardized essentially, and created like the seraphim of him, is like traumatic. And then we don't even know the backstory. Apparently the backstory of Kuma, and we don't know Bonnie's backstory alone, but those two things are probably going to be so heavy that it's going to be a taste of what Imu went through, because Imu probably is from the probably from the Void Century. I don't think that's a crazy take, but the Void Century had the Ancient Kingdom that was supposed to be more advanced than Vegapunk, and for some reason they fell to the world government, and Eames the head of it. So it might be that the reason why they fell was because they traumatized like this princess essentially of that. And so I had this theory that like Eam was a part of the Ancient Kingdom, might actually be a byproduct of the Ancient Kingdom, and they defected, and so like one way or the other, the whole princess theme definitely fits. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of the moon thing, yeah, they're like Wano's connected to the moon. They're all the clans are moon named, for example, and they're from the Void Century as well. Like Kozuki means light moon, Amatsuki means heaven moon, which comes back to my one of my theories that I said that the Amatsuki and Kozuki probably had a civil war during the Void Century, and the Amatsuki clan is probably the one that joined the Gorosei, like the royal family, so to say, in other kingdoms. And so that heaven moon is very interesting. You see that moon name come again. Then you get the Sulong. The Sulong, a lot of people don't realize this, but they're actually 100% connected to Emu in the sense of their eyes. Emu was shown with the double layered eyes. When Minx goes Sulong, they also get the same red double layered eyes. It's a slightly different, but it's the same thing. And we got introduced to them right before we got shown Emu's eyes. It was the Zoe arc and then Reverie, right? And so and then also, how do they go Sulong? They look at the moon, right? They go look at the moon and get memories of their ancestors. And so there's various theories on that route, but here's something, I'm gonna hit you guys with my own thing in a little bit, but with this one, I don't know if you're aware of this, Zhoniin. One of the most important characters that Oda has introduced to us in the SBS, but also throughout the entire manga, to the point where people have been on a rabid search for him, is Panda Man. Panda Man's, Oda gave him the backstory that he was bullied as a kid growing up for claiming to have seen Princess Kaguya. And we don't know Panda Man's origins. He was shown even in Nolan's backstory. But he's been like literally everywhere. I think he was like in Roger's flashback too, in chapter 0 that we referenced before. I think he's also there as well. And Oda's been talking about him so many times in the SBS, and even put his name on a poneglyph. And if Panda Man's anything, it could probably be a mink, right? Like that, if Panda Man was ever included in the canon story, probably a mink. And so for connecting those two dots, yeah, 100% I see the Kaguya reference to Eam, but I also see like a bunch of other. I feel like Oda's the kind of writer to, mesh a bunch of inspirations together, and it might be that Kaguya is probably one of the foundational ones. If I were to pick like on a multiple choice question. But yeah, I definitely see that. I love that train of thought.
No, I really enjoy the Princess Kaguya route. I mean, yeah, it was done in Naruto, and I feel like that's where some people are. They're like, oh no, like this was a Naruto thing. I don't want this in my One Piece story. I don't want this in my cereal box. But the thing with that is that Oda and Kishimoto are really good friends, and I feel like this is a chance to do it differently too. Because I don't think anybody's going to see this, like, Kaguya story and be like, whoa, like, we're going to have Madara come in here too? What's next? No, like, the way Oda has been setting up this whole side story with Imu, which is crazy because we haven't met them once yet. Like, literally, they're just a random character that we think is going to be the final villain, right? And we have no real inklings as to how we're going to get there. We have Luffy gunning for Pirate King, and then somewhere along the way, he's probably going to go fight Im. Like, that's just kind of like how we're all imagining this. And I'm on the same boat. And if it does have that princess route, then that could give more validity to why Luffy needs to go there. Because there's another princess that just needs subjugation, apparently. Which I'm down for. I'm down.
No, you're not.
It's a good meme. It's a good meme. Luffy always meets the princesses. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but you could say
a Pokemon
harem.
collector.
The meme is the harem side, not subjugation. Okay, I don't know what memes you're seeing. Like,
no. Subjugation is the same thing as romance, or not romancing, but like becoming friends with somebody. Subjugation.
I just want everyone to know Sai is married. He's not. He's memeing around right now.
Subjugation is a term of endearment.
Hey, not all marriage is created equal.
Oh no.
Zhoniin's running with it.
But I'll give you guys some more parallels, and we can go off of that. So, I think Enel is for sure the biggest parallel to Imu besides Doflamingo. Because Enel's whole thing is, apparently he was a Birkin, which I don't really buy, because, like, does he say that he removed his own wings at some point?
No, but Oda did confirm that Haradis from Wetheria, the old people that trained Nami during the time skip.
Yeah, they're like Gonfalian people.
that Haradis is also a confirmed Birkin.
Okay.
So like just like Enel, and he doesn't have wings. So there is like Oda went out of his way to confirm that. But yeah, I agree with you. One of my biggest questions has always been like, do those wings like grow back? And when I feel like I said that, and then King had his wing cut off, and I was like, oh, finally we're gonna be able to see it. And then we didn't see it, and now I'm sad. But
it's like Dragon Ball, where you just remove the monkey tail.
True. And also,
it just grows back later.
I get the parallels of like, he is God, so he's not going to have wings like his disciples and whatever else. But his whole thing was about, I want to go to endless Earth or fairy Earth, however what translation you go by. But his whole thing was like, there's limitless amount of it, and it's like it's where God is supposed to be. And I think this is kind of like Imu in reverse a little bit, because Enel is going to the moon, because that's also how the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter ends. Kaguya eventually just becomes overcome with like, just I don't belong here. Like, that's also why she refuses the Emperor of Japan, who's the one person that she actually felt somewhat mutual for. It's kind of ambiguous, but with the five suitors, like the five Gorosei essentially, she didn't really love them. She just kind of like gave them the runaround, like put them in like the kind of like friend zone, but giving them hope that it could happen. She gave them like these impossible tasks.
Feels bad.
Yeah, like one of the tasks was like, hey, go get a colored jewel from a dragon's neck. So like, yeah, there's no way they could do that stuff. However, when the Emperor of Japan proposed to her, she never gave him like an impossible trial. She just simply rejected him because she couldn't live there anymore. She's not one of them. She had to return to the moon. That's like her ultimate thing, is going back to the moon, which she does at the end of the story. And that's kind of like Enel's journey, right? That's his arc. He goes to the moon because he feels that he belonged there. And another thing that we know, or at least it's implied through what Enel finds out on the moon through that cover story, is that whatever race came down from the moon kind of ran out of their resources, right? And they came to Earth because essentially that's what they want. It's limitless resources. So I think that's showing us more of that. Also with the fact that, you know, when he strikes down people for speaking against him, obviously we saw Emu do that with Lelougia and implied to be using Uranus. So aside from that, another thing is that when Kaguya eventually decides to go back to the moon, she leaves, you know, the Emperor, she leaves a note to him, and they have this correspondence for a little bit, and then she eventually goes back. But when she does go back, she drinks a little bit of the elixir of immortality. And then she attaches it to a letter that she sends to the Emperor and says, you know, give it to him. You know, I want him to have it because, you know, that's like the only person that she essentially had mutual feelings for, even though they weren't as strong as his own. And when the Emperor finds out that she did this, he just destroys it. He's like, I don't want to live forever without her. And he goes to the top of the mountain and like burns whatever so that the smoke can maybe reach the moon and then she'll feel what he's feeling. But that's essentially the end of the story. But Elixir of Immortality, super fascinating. But aside from that, as soon as Kaguya leaves, all of the sadness and compassion for the people of Earth that she had are forgotten. And that goes back to me paralleling it to Pudding and Sanji. Because it is a forbidden romance. They can't really be together, even though they're supposed to be, at least, you know, through the oligarchy. And, you know, Pudding has 3 eyes. In my opinion, I think Emu is also the original 3-eye race, which is just aliens. That's a whole thing for another time. But what Pudding does is she takes Sanji's memories from him so that he no longer is sad about what had happened. The sadness and the compassion, it's gone. He's forgotten. Same thing that is pretty much happened in the Void Century, right? That time is just forgotten. And it goes back to also what I said with the Elixir of Immortality, because Ibu has the eyes. I've been speculating. I don't know if you guys are fully on board with it. I know Sai is kind of, but the eyes that Zunisha, Mihawk, Emu, and Hakuba have, they all have the same eyes, and I think it is from the perpetual youth surgery being performed on them, the ultimate ability of the Ope Ope no Mi. Now, I think that whoever did it to Kaguya was probably Joy Boy. I know that doesn't make sense. I think it could be the reverse of this story. He forced Emu to be alive forever because for some reason she can't leave Mary Schwa. And I think that's where the true elixir of immortality is, which could be the chrysanthemums, the flowers that we always see associated with her. Also why it's maybe the celestial dragons wear those helmets. Aside from being astronauts, maybe they need the oxygen.
Aside from being astronauts, they just came back from Mars.
But yeah, what do you guys think about that?
I really like this, and I feel like the idea of immortality in One Piece, not just from the Ope Ope no Mi, but like even just like a regular drink, like from that story, there are hints of that. I know it's filler, and Oda probably had nothing to do with this, but there was an elixir of immortality hinted at in an early filler of One Piece, where they got it from the dragon blood, which I thought was always really interesting because it's like, oh, that was like before celestial dragons were a thing. That's before the perpetual youth surgery was a thing. And, you know, filler isn't canon at all, but you could look at it and say, oh, maybe like Oda was inspired by some of these ideas and then kind of ran with it and put his own spin on it. So there being an elixir of immortality that has been used before, like on somebody like Eam or the Gorosei, I feel like that is very plausible. And if you guys haven't watched that filler, I would definitely recommend to go check it out. It's one of the worst ones out there. I wanted to gouge my eyes out. It's so bad.
But just consume this garbage just for the sake of
Yeah,
knowledge.
it's good. It's One Piece content. You can't hate it. You can't hate it.
It's funny that Sai says that because he recently rewatched all of it, and I did the same thing with my wife. She was watching from the start, and she was like, oh, like she didn't want to skip the filler, and I was like, no, just skip it. But then I saw that, and I watched the first like 2 episodes of it, and I was like, wait, this is crack. This is insane, because a lot of people don't realize is Logtown, for example. There's filler in the anime, but those are all canon. Like Oda, that was stuff that he had to cut out of the manga, but he gave to like the anime to flesh out. Whether that's important or not, is a separate question. But right after that, or right before that, is the thing that the dragon that Sai's talking about with the dragon thing. And it's not just that, it's something even crazier. To give you guys some insight, there's a monologue by one of the main characters that's so boring, but like he says some insane things, like for example, the history of those people are they're descendants of a forgotten dragon people. They're all dragon people from an island that was destroyed by the world government thousands of years ago. And I was like, wait, hello? This is kind of important, guys. And then he talks about a special tree, a tree that's like woven by dreams and stuff like that. And so, obviously, if you know some stories about Kaguya, like, and other fictions and how they're woven together, then you see where it goes. And then you're like, wait, we have like a few important trees in One Piece, and we don't know where devil fruits come from. But what he's talking about right now kind of sounds like what is happening in Marriage Raw, which is funny because I was saying that that Eam might be part dragon race people, dragon fishmen, so to say. But I have a lot of really fun theories when it comes to Eam. And so to go back to the eyes thing, not to discount what Zhoniin was saying, but like I have a different perspective that still connects back to the Kaguya thing, still connects back to a lot of these things. The double layered eyes for me, I made one of my oldest theories is that they're all like a dual soul type of thing. Like Hakuba Cavendish is obviously like there's a soul within him that creates that double eyes. So like when he's normal, he has normal eyes. When he's taken over by Hakuba, he has no eyes. When he's half and half though, that's when you get the double layered eyes. And so then like I applied that to every other iteration of that, and it made sense for a lot of them. But the one that I really liked was the Sulong one, the mink one, because the minks, they're normal, and then they look at the moon, they can get the memories of an ancestor, and then they get the double layered eyes. And what I was saying earlier, that connects to Eam, because in the Kaguya story, from memory, she came down to earth like as desiring a certain kind of life, and she didn't necessarily have the memories that she had. And then somewhere later on, through one way or the other, she regained those memories, and the memories she got were from the moon. And so it ties that like word for word connection ties back to the minks, but it also implies that like, like these memories could change a person, which is why like memories is so important, like you're saying with pudding, right? The three-eyed connection, I definitely see that too. I can see that mixing in, but with the emu perspective specifically, I'm seeing it like they're at this point in the story, the reason why Eam has those double layered eyes is because they're tapped into the moon, which is another crazy theory that I have, which honestly I don't think is that crazy, is that the moon in One Piece, I have a few different iterations that make this make sense, but one version of it is that, how we have like punk records in the current timeline, and everything that Vegapunk has done, there's been like allusion to a Void Century version. So like Vega Force 1, and then there's the legendary Iron Giant as the most concrete example. But like there's the fact that he has the sea beast, the mechanized sea beast under his control, that's like the Poseidon, right? Like there's these iterations of the Void Century. into what he's done. And so I think that the Punk Records is also something that would make sense that exists in the past, because why would he be the only holder of his devil fruit, right? Luffy's not the first holder of his devil fruit from what we understand. And even if he was the first person to take it to Vegapunk's extent, there has to be some source. So my thought line is that in the Void Century there was a larger version of Punk Records, and where I landed on was the moon because of various connections. One of my favorite ones is that the moon clans on Wano, like all of them are named moon clans, but when you zoom out on Wano and you look at the map of Wano, it's shaped like a brain. It's even split up into 5 parts where you get like the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, like the brain stem. Like Oda even drew a brain stem. I was like, why did he do that? You know, and so there's a lot more of those connections, but one way or the other, if Eames looking at the moon and getting memories from it, then that double layered eye connection makes a lot of sense. And one way or the other, moon, Eam, Kaguya, Oda can blend all those concepts together. Like we're seeing with Egghead, right? Like there's obviously like Terminator, Star Wars, like there's so many futuristic things that I think he's going to incorporate into the Kaguya route. But one of my favorite ones at the moment for the Kaguya thing is whether she's like from the moon or is the moon or is connected to the moon. I like the idea because I think Kaguya, and again, the reason why I'm so blurred on what the actual story is so many fictions have touched on that story that it's hard to know or remember what like the real one was. But I think Kaguya like loved the earth and like loved the people on it, and that reminds me of the framework that Oda has for the entire story, which is like pirates, ships, and all that. And one of the most important connections that he made, or not connections, but like, yeah, like real lore connections, is Klabauterman. He made it so like this Klabauterman of the Going Merry is so sentient that it created a person, like it created a little child that fixed the ship, that was able to sail the ship, that came because it was loved so much by its crewmates. And you know, just to fast forward through the theory, you guys can watch the video, it's a long video, so the reason why I'm not explaining it here, but I was saying that either another thing that was romanticized when Oda, especially in his childhood, was the space race, like us going to the moon. That was happening in his like he was born on the onset of that. And so one thing that was said throughout that entire time was that the Earth is a spaceship that we all share, and that we all should love and we all should care about. And so my current idea is that Eam is the Kabauterman of the Earth, or the Kabauterman of the moon. And the moon one makes sense because the moon is like a desolate place that was abandoned. They jumped shipped to a blue Earth, to a better ship. But I like the Earth one because the way that would fit in with the Void Century, right? Because the other part of Kabauterman is that they show up when their ship is doomed. So it would play a really cool role for Kaguya Eam to see like the thing that they love is doomed, and that's why they showed up. That's why they're in power. That's why they're trying to reset the equilibrium so that they could survive, or like life can be maintained and stay the same, which is, you know, can be problematic in a lot of different ways. So one way or the other, I love the route with Enel, Kaguya. So many parallels in One Piece, 100%.
So I do like what you're saying with the eyes meaning dual souls, because that's very plausible as well. I'll say 90% sure on the immortality, the perpetual youth surgery, but I'm open to other stuff for sure. And I like the parallel soul thing because, you know, how else would you explain Hakuba? But going back to what we're talking about, the dragon stuff, which is, it leads me to the final thing that I want to discuss here, and it's what Imu's devil fruit, which I'm pretty sure she does have one for sure. She has to. It just wouldn't make sense.
It's got to be broken.
Well, it is. It's the best devil fruit. If it is in fact this one. So, in the Tale of Bamboo Cutter, the moon that Kaguya-hime ascends to, it was like a mythical type of place, more so, not like more so literally supposed to be the moon. But it's referred to as, get this, the Undersea Dragon Palace, which is the palace of Ryujin, or the Dragon God. And I think that's what her fruit is. It's going to be something like the fish fruit mythical model Ryujin, which would be like Dragon King model. And this allows her to have control over water. Like, that is her ability. And that explains why the world is the way that it is, and why devil fruits have a weakness to water, because she made it that way. It angers the sea god, or the sea devil. That is Emu. She is the sea devil. She was the whole time. She orchestrated all of this, and that's why the tides are the way that they are, and how everything came to be with the Calm Belt and the Grand Line. Also, why the jewel ice sheet perpetually regenerates when it's broken, because this is like a whole other thing. But I think when she had the mass slaughter of the ancient giants, that's where their grave is, and she made it so that the ice can never fully be broken, so that they'll never be discovered. That's also how Moria got oars and whatnot. Also, and why did she kill them? Because I think she used them to make the Grand Line. Not the Grand Line, I'm sorry, the Red Line. Moria says that they were continent pullers in the past. I think that lines up. And then after she had them do that, she slaughtered all of them and then threw them in the jewel ice sheet. But aside from that, I think that her devil fruit is this, and she has the ability to control water. Not like a Logia, like she can't produce it, but I think she could just control it if it's there.
I think one thing interesting about the water controlling ability is that we know that Oda wants to get goofy with the One Piece fights in the future, right? Like, Luffy has this cartoony Gear 5th ability. So when I put the water in terms of Luffy fights, I could see Oda mixing in art styles too, like getting absolutely bonkers with it. So if Kaguya does control water, like a lot of people are assuming, maybe he brings in watercoloring.
Yes.
I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm just like, if Oda's going back and he's doing the rubber hose animation with Luffy's Gear 5th, then, watercoloring, realism, I feel like we're going to see a different art style altogether when we get to that finale.
Yeah, wait,
it's a clash of art styles.
I think you're thinking the same thing as me, Par, but go ahead.
Whether Eam
Did
has
it just trigger a primordial fear? What happened?
I'm like, because the way you said that, like, just was so, I don't know, the watercolor thing. Like, I feel like if I said that in a video, people would be like, nah, he's crazy. But like, the thing is, I said, the way I see the end stage of One Piece, not necessarily gravitating toward devil fruits, where it could, right? Like, an ultimate devil fruit would make a lot of sense. I'm not saying that it's not there. But if Eam is truly from the Void Century and like a progenitor of a lot of the like devil fruits and power systems or whatever, or connected to at least, then I could see them having a similar power as like the original Nika, for example, right? Like, if Nika is in a devil fruit and is procured from a source, right? Like, then that original person didn't have a devil fruit. Devil fruits came from that person, and Nika apparently has the power of, like you said, like imagination. And so I have an entire video that says that Eam's name might be Eam Majin, so like imagine, and that ties back to a wordplay that seems like it could be there with Void, Empty Throne, and Eam. A lot of those the kanji behind them can be connected to the word imaginary. And so what I was saying is that the last fight would be a battle of imagination. That sounds goofy, but the thing is, like, imagination, it's not like the same things clashing. We, like, Zhoniin just said, like, I think we're thinking about the same thing, but we might say it in a completely different way. And one of the things I was saying is, well, Joy Boy is being connected to music. You can get a message across music differently than a message across a book, differently than a message across a painting. And the thing is, what we saw of Eam at taking out Lelucia was them holding a paintbrush. So what I was saying was that Eam might be able to evocate their imagination through painting, and Joy Boy through music, and it might be that's the clash. Whereas like we see Oda, right, his version of that is he does it through a manga panel, right? Like his imagination is there. And so I would love it if Oda did that and put those imagination tools against each other. And water painting, like coloring, that would be so sick from a visual standpoint, from like a industry standpoint, from like so many different directions. And I agree with what Zhoniin said, like one way or the other the water powers are going to come through. I think that like the water powers are definitely going to come through. It's just it's just how creative Oda is going to be with it. And I see as far as what Sai is saying with the water painting. I love that a lot.
This is a great way to end the video because Sai, just like Par was saying, the watercolor stuff is not far-fetched because there could be, first of all, parallels to Miss Golden Week. First of all,
Giola.
I love you.
No, Giola's coming next. This is
like
where the
Oda,
bomb's getting dropped. The bomb's
Oda
getting
loves
dropped.
these weird AF characters, man. Like,
so look at this.
I don't know what
Look
it is.
at this thing that Giola makes. Okay? This is the story of One Piece. This is what we were talking about. Look at the person to the left. That's Imu, the eye right there. And you see on the left of the person, it kind of represents what's happening with Laugh-Tale. I think, in my opinion, she's taking Laugh-Tale and then snuffing it out, and then the person below, right with the crown, who is Momo in this instance, but I think that's Joy Boy.
I'm trying to pull up the painting myself, but I know what you're talking about. I have the image in my head.
Oh no, I
That is
posted it in
cursed
Discord.
artwork. I can't believe Giola's canon.
The thing is, Giola isn't like 100. I'm not.
Don't break
discounting
her
what
at it until
Giola
down.
The Yo, I forgot that she's there, honestly, because she was off Dressrosa fighting. But Miss Golden Week, 1000%. One thing about Miss Golden Week was that she broke into prison and broke out Baroque's work. Like basically solo. Everybody didn't like, she was basically the person who did it. And she broke out even Crocodile, but Crocodile didn't go. And the thing was, right before that cover story ended, what she did was she painted using the color, the rainbow color, and she showed everybody who saw it their dreams. And we saw what Crocodile's dream looked like. We saw Mr. One's, I believe, as well. And so like there we go, another connection from painting and how powerful painting can be. And then Giola's one, 100,000%. When Giola showed up, I was like, wait, this is kind of insane. How do you beat this? And so like if that's the sentiment you kind of get off of a power, and it would make sense that Eam gets that. But then also Miss Golden Week was able to, with a single color, I think it was black betrayal, and then her symbol, she was able to make Luffy betray his crew. Like he made, and then that image that you just sent in the thing, that looks like Film Red, right? Like it just reminds me of Film Red instantly. So I see it. Yo, I love this. This is my favorite conversation recently.
Yeah,
Woo.
just snuffing out the sun. That is like the whole thing, right? The D, which we assume means dawn. And also, I don't know how much we want to put on this, but this other picture I sent of Giola, split down the face, could be the whole two souls thing, but also her chest looks like the Ope Ope no Mi.
Yeah.
Amalgamation of devil fruits. Yeah, Giola's cursed.
But yeah, we can end it there.
So, today, got a special collab. Got newcomer to the channel, Dak Ake. What's up, Dak?
What's going on, everyone? I'm excited to be here.
Got Sai and Par, as usual.
You know what it is.
Did we come up with a name for this? Not
Yeah, well, we're the Boys Club.
the Boys Club. The Boys Guild.
The Cross Guild Pirate Group.
Maybe we shouldn't leave the naming up to Sai.
No, Fast Kill Shot fans.
No, why are you bringing that here?
Now I agree. Yeah, but this Par's here. Par low.
What do you... Oh my god. But the audio might sound a little weird here, guys, because we're actually in LA right now. I'm with Par in person, and we're like at a cafe, like recording. It's not
like
on
a radio show.
It is. But today we're talking about something very special because it has little bearing to go off of, but it's pretty exciting for the title and thumbnail. And that's what's going on at Egghead, especially with Blackbeard, because, you know, I've already put it out there by now. The title is Blackbeard going to take Saturn's devil fruit? I don't know. I mean, we'll get into that. But the main thing that I just want to talk about is what's going on at Egghead right now, because we haven't, you know, been there in a while since chapter 1079, right? Because the main talking point is basically in chapter 1078, where it says the resolution of this incident the following day would inflict a kind of shock the world never saw coming. And that's wild. That can mean tons of things, especially through the words of Oda. And then in the following chapter 1079, before we like completely depart from Egghead altogether, we see one of the Blackbeard ship headed to Egghead. And it's like, what's going on there? Because we at least know where some of them are, right? At Hachinosu right now, some of them are fighting against Garp, but Blackbeard's not there, right?
No, he is not. You guys missing MIA.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of speculation. Some people are trying to say like Blackbeard's been in all places, like he's separated, multiple personalities, split clones. Like there's been so many different ways to make sense of the timeline outside of the idea that, yeah, Blackbeard's not on Hachinosu at the moment. And if he's going to Egghead, then I'd imagine there's something there that he wants to take. I feel like it had to be something that he already knew was there, or somehow he'd have to get notified that like all this stuff is happening there. But like everything at the moment, like the panels that you read, those were all like internal marine communication or like the narrator box to us. So as far as like what Blackbeard's receiving, we're not even sure. So that makes the mystery even more interesting as far as like why Blackbeard would come to Egghead. But I mean, the baseline foundational thing is you know, devil fruits. Blackbeard, devil fruits, Vegapunk, devil fruits. It's like a farm for them. It's like the best place to go.
Yeah.
He's apple picking, you know?
I'm glad you brought this up. And Dax, I want to ask your special opinion after I just get to this point, and it's the whole devil fruits, and I think that's why Blackbeard is going there. So recently, it hasn't been fully confirmed, but in my opinion at least, the Gorosei have devil fruit. I think it's clear that they do, and it's probably some kind of mythical Zhoniin or Zhoniin at the minimum. And now that Saturn is there, it's possible, it's not impossible, that maybe Blackbeard knows that or something to that degree. I mean, why is he going there all of a sudden? So it's possible that he could be going there to get a devil fruit, but then once he gets there, he's like, oh, Saturn's here, I'm Blackbeard, you know, let me do it. Because also, I think it's heavily implied at this point that Blackbeard is going to have 3 devil fruits. He already has Paramecia, he has a Logia, so him getting a Zoan, especially on the level of Saturn, would just be fitting, I think, if he doesn't already have. But that brings me back to what I wanted to ask you, Dak. What, just aside from the, you know, the fantastical thought of him taking Saturn's fruit, hypothetically, what is your just opinion on Blackbeard getting another devil fruit? Because I'm sure you have, you know, some really good theory about that, and I would love to hear it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So I'll say this, you know, the reason that York has all those hostages in an old devil fruit research lab specifically, right? That's where everything's coming to a head right now. With this trader stuff is in a devil fruit research lab specifically. And then the very last thing we saw, as you mentioned earlier, was Blackbeard pulling up. So I could definitely see a world where those things tie. But as for his fruit, I'm of the mind he actually already has it. Now, it's not 100%, but you know, going back to like Shanks being scarred, he was young, and like, you know, all these warnings to Whitebeard and stuff, I'm almost wondering if like he already had that third fruit and it was revealed to only like a couple people, and then we're going to find out. But I will say your idea about Saturn is really intriguing because, like I mentioned, all the stuff's happening in Devil Fruit Research Lab. And Oda has a very consistent process with these kind of silhouette figures where he shows us this silhouette that's like a black silhouette with white eyes, and then he'll like trickle in the reveals of these beings over time, right? Like you look at the numbers, we see all of them at once, we see the same kind of silhouette, and then we get 1 or 2 at a time, or maybe 3 towards the end. Like he just kind of, you know, like slices them in there over time. So it's like a slow reveal. And with Saturn pulling up by himself at Egghead, it would make sense that he's going to reveal that devil fruit or whatever the power is, and that could be the reason, Blackbeard, gets excited about that. Like, oh, well, I came here for this, but maybe I could take that. But with all that being said, though, what I think is most likely is he's coming for the Seraphim, for some way to control them, because he already went to Amazon Lily to go get Boa's fruit, and, for a variety of reasons, he couldn't get it. But there's S-Snake over at Egghead, which could mimic those powers. Similarly, he wanted to get Moria, and Moria seems to be, not wanting to join because he had to be locked up and all that kind of stuff. But we know S-Gecko exists now, and he might have the Shadow Fruit. So basically, Blackbeard might be able to maneuver around all of this if he can get control of the Seraphim. But then the question would be, how does he do that? I'm not 100% sure. Maybe he's trying to kidnap the Stella or another one of the Vegapunks, but I think a big factor could be, Vegapunk's brain is Punk Records, and he has Pudding, who has the memo powers, right? She can access people's memory. And so I'm wondering, is there a tie-in there where maybe he's trying to learn stuff about double fruits, like the science behind it, so he can keep kind of cheating the system by accessing Punk Records? Is there a way to control the Seraphim by accessing Punk Records? What's going on in that whole area? I mean, his island is Hachinosu, which is a giant skull, so you put a brain inside of that skull, maybe he's there to go get Punk Records and take it, like there's some kind of plan. Not exactly sure, but there's definitely something with double powers, whether it's him getting one or maybe getting the Seraphim because of those powers, whatever it is, definitely something related to that for sure.
I started smiling when Dax brought the Seraphim because I agree, like, pretty much all the way through. There's just a few things on the Seraphim route that is interesting, because from what we saw or what we can gather, Kobe at Amazon Lily told the Seraphims to stand down at a certain point, and we don't have a full context of what that fight looked like with Blackbeard, but we know Blackbeard was unscathed, and so we're not necessarily sure if S-Snake and S-Hawk were able to use their Devil Fruit powers at the time, because, Boa was there. Boa was the one who used the power. I think it's fair to say that Blackbeard probably saw it, but as far as what we saw, I don't know if Blackbeard did see it. And that's where it's like interesting, because I was playing with this line of logic and he took Kobe, and I was thinking, like, wouldn't it make sense to bring Kobe? Or as far as like leaving Amazon Lily, Kobe had the control over the Seraphim. Like, if he wanted the Seraphim, couldn't he have like told Kobe to like order the Seraphim to him? Or like, if that was the play, he was kidnapping Kobe, why not bring the Seraphim at that point? He saw Kobe order them. And then if he's going to Egghead for the Seraphim, I feel like it would also make sense to bring Kobe along the way, because he knows that they can control them, right? Like, if he's gonna go there and then fight them and then capture them and then bring them back, that is one route. But I feel like if the Seraphim were the target, he would want to bring Kobe at the minimum. Or maybe this is where Katarina Devon is headed towards Egghead. That's the loophole, right? If Vegapunk was dumb enough to make it just a simple voice recognition system and not, like, I don't know, lineage factor based or something, then yeah, Katarina Devon could mimic Kobe, then control the Seraphim, do whatever. And then, hey, if Saturn's gonna be there and they find out that he overrides it, then maybe Katarina Devon takes over like a Stella or Gorosei. Like, I don't know.
But also, we have to remember that the place where the Cycle agents are being kept, it's the old Devil Fruit research facility, so there must be a new one that's up and running out there somewhere. So maybe that doesn't have to do with that. Maybe this was just a rune that they used to contain Zhoniins, maybe, right? Like you have to wonder, like, why is this, I want to call it, like, a bulletproof chamber in a Devil Fruit roof? Like what does this have to do? Like, is this where they locked up Senior Pink for like a week before they took out the fruit? Is this maybe where Zhoniin Devil Fruits go crazy and they have to like control it and rein it in? I'm not really too sure what that looks like, but one way or another, when it comes to bringing in or raiding in the Seraphim for Blackbeard, I feel like that's super plausible considering who we have not seen yet from the Blackbeard Pirates. We haven't seen Lafitte and we haven't seen Karen Devon. Those are the only two members recently that just are MIA. So I do believe that those are the two characters on their way to Egghead. And like you guys said, like, Karen Devon can transform herself into Kobe, transform herself into maybe even a Vec. And I think that's kind of what it boils down to. That's where we might be heading. And the funniest part is that, like, with the Blackbeard Pirates on their way here, they don't need to just get one thing, right? We're all like, oh, it's probably the Seraphim, it's maybe the Devil Fruits, it could be Saturn. Honestly, it could be everything. They could be after whatever they can get their hands on. These guys are grubby little creatures, right? You throw a coin their way and they're just gonna snatch it up. And I'm actually excited to see where this goes. But one way or another, unless unless these guys go full incognito VPN mode, I don't know how they're going to avoid running into 100 Marine battleships or the strong out crew or CP0. Like, these guys are going to have to work behind the scenes, because if you put Lafitte and Devon, like, let's say those are the people on their way here, if they run into Luffy, I feel like it's GG. If they run into Saturn, I think that's game as well. And even Rob Lucci, like, you know, we kind of meme on Rob Lucci because he got waxed, but I still believe in him. I feel like he could probably take on Devon or maybe even Lafitte. And it's like, dang, like, these guys are going to have to work under scrutinous conditions.
Well, I think it's all about espionage, because you have the two most espionage-centric people with and Devon. Now, the issue is the ship. Like, if they see the ship on the shore, like, there's no hiding that. But as far as the other two, you know, Lafitte has proven to be a master of that by sneaking into Marie's Wall and, like, you know, vouching for Blackbeard to become one of the warlords or whatever. And then Devon, she can turn into anybody, apparently. And so what I could kind of see happening, like the way this all kind of wraps together is, like, Par, you mentioned earlier, like, why not bring Kobe? And I think part of that is because, so, like, you know, he found out about the Seraphim at the same time he was trying to get Boa's fruit. Like, he didn't know they existed, at least it seemed, until that event. But that was about a month ago. So I think he probably spent this last month talking to the crew, like, all right, how do we get these things? Like, we need to go figure out how to do this. And the thing is like, yes, Katarina Devon could turn into Kobe or turn into Saturn. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even need... So, like, you have the two people that could do the espionage, like, sneak in without fighting people, to answer your question. And then to, like, answer how everything ties together, like, yeah, Blackbeard was probably like, hey, it's probably safer to send the two people that can sneak around with nobody noticing, other than having me, you know, like...
It's like all of us, the villains.
Like, immediately, it's like here from the shore. And also, I'll say this, just one last thing, I guess, is Blackbeard's definitely going to get there first, because Saturn is going so slow.
Oh my goodness.
Like, yeah, they've known about this for 3 months, and Blackbeard just found out he's going to beat everyone there. Even it was pre-planned. Yeah, it's exactly, like, how does this happen? So, I think, exactly, like, there's a whole armada, and we've heard about it forever, and then Blackbeard's definitely going to get there first, somehow, or will his crew. And I think generally, you know, Blackbeard's splitting his crew up against these three islands, like Hachinosu, Winter Island, and Egghead. I think he's going to, like, win, quote unquote, at all three, and that's going to, like, make everyone super scared of, like, like, he beat Garp, he's got, maybe he'd even control Garp with, like, shadow powers or something, of Echo or something, I don't know. And then, like, oh, he's got Punk Records with him, and he's got the rubbings from Law, like, this dude is Pino. So yeah, something like that is how I see it shaking down.
I think it's funny. One last joke about Blackbeard showing up before the Marines, but you gotta remember, the Blackbeard ships are all just giant logs strapped together. Like, this guy's actually just floating in on driftwood, and they're making it there faster than everybody else. That's wild to me.
And it might only be Lafitte and Devon on that ship, and there's everyone.
Oh my goodness.
So I got Sai with me, and we're going to be talking about a new possible mythical Zhoniin devil fruit that's out there. You know, that's all the rage nowadays, because Gear 5 just debuted in the anime. We've got a whole bunch of new people coming in, and they're like, oh my god, Luffy's rubber fruit was actually a mythical Zhoniin this whole time, and he's a mythical Zhoniin. And it's like, what else is going on with there? It's like, what if I told you that Luffy's father, Monkey D. Dragon, could also have a mythical Zhoniin devil fruit as well? If you're not aware, One Piece, the story and its characters, kind of like a hodgepodge of inspiration that Oda took from, like, mythology, religion, history, and everything, and kind of based a lot of stuff off of that. Luffy, he is apparently based off of Hanuman, god of the monkeys, or the Bajrang Bali. That's why he calls that massive attack that he hits Kaido with the Bajrang gun. Well, in Hindu religion, the father of that guy is the wind god, Pavandev. So why that makes sense that it could be dragon is because throughout the story, we've seen that dragon probably has some kind of, like, wind powers. I mean, it's like almost guaranteed at this point. He has to have something. I mean, like, all the way back at Logetown, he was clearly the guy who was manipulating the green winds and everything. So and also, you know, we saw him blow away those fires in that flashback when he was saving that random town or island or whatever. You probably know the name of it, but he definitely has some kind of wind devil fruit, and it ultimately comes down to, like, is it a Logia? Is it a Paramecia? Is it a Zhoniin? And it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. It probably is a mythical Zhoniin at this point, because why not? So now, if it is a mythical Zhoniin, it could be a snake fruit mythical Zhoniin. And now you might be also thinking, well, there was already a mythical snake fruit with Orochi. And yes, that's true. But I don't know if that necessarily means that there can only be one mythical model of, like, a certain other sub-model. You know, because there's, like, we've seen two different snake fruits before, Sandersonian and what was the other one?
Marigold.
Marigold.
Yeah.
Hancock sisters. They were just like the standard Zoan.
So when it comes to mythical Zoans, there's no cap on how many mythical variants of a certain type there can be. So there can definitely be like multiple mythical snake Zoans, for example. I don't think there's been anything in the series yet to debunk that. And the cool thing with this is that, you know, going back to what you said about Dragon having wind-related powers, that's been something that the community has been throwing around for the longest time now. And it's either we can come to the consensus that he has some wind-related devil fruit, or he just has some really crazy lungs and he's just blowing air like no other. But obviously, we're going to err more on the side that he has some sort of devil fruit. The wind fruit, you know, that could be a thing. But what would that be? Would that be a Logia? Would he be a Windman? I don't know. I feel like it would make more sense if he was a mythical Zoan instead. Simply because with, like you said, the tie-in with Luffy, right? We have him being like this variant of Hanuman and other religious figures. I heard a lot of African folklore as well had a character that was similar to Luffy and Joy Boy. So Oda's pulling from different mythologies and just bringing it all into the story. And I feel like the same could be had for Dragon too. And you came up with a really good example of what it could be, right?
Yeah, which is, we'll get into it, which is funny, but I just wanted to go over the, what you were saying about how there's no, like, confirmation that there can only be one mythical model of fruit. And that's true, because there's, like, 3 mythical human fruits. You know, there's Luffy, Sengoku, and Oni freaking Maru has a mythical human fruit. Ani Uno? It makes him into like that monk warrior for some reason. Waste of a fruit.
Now I feel silly that we even talked about there only being like one mythical model per variant.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's so many. Actually, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So there
multiple Hito no Mis.
Yeah, so there could be 2 snake fruits, and snakes are heavily tied to like mythologies and stuff. So come on, let's just say.
Man, I'm gonna go one further.
Oh,
there's another Hito that's mythological too. I'm gonna say Chopper is a mythological one. Because let me tell you, I have never seen any human that looks like Chopper, man. I go outside on a regular basis. I see other people. I look in the mirror. And let me tell you, I don't see Chopper when I look in the mirror. You could say that's his hybrid form, and I think that's very fair. But that must mean there's a full Zoan transformation of Chopper where he actually looks like a regular Joe. And Oda's holding back. He hasn't shown us that yet. I want to see full human Chopper. Bring him out.
Awakening.
Get him out of the closet. Yeah, Awakening.
Yeah, he just looks like a human, and he has like the smoke cloud around him. You know, the Awakening smoke.
That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
He would look like a Joe Biden character. the pinnacle of mankind. Everything this world has to offer.
But going back to Dragon, well, he said his mythical Zoa could be a snake, but like what?
Yes.
You know, what myth of the snake? Well, we're going to Incan mythology. Oh, interesting. We haven't really explored that too much, or at least as far as I know in the series. So it could be this mythical Incan creature by the name of Amaru, which is kind of like a chimera. You know, I'll have it up on the screen here. Now, this picture that we're looking at, the main thing that I want to take away from here is the tail. If you look at the tail, it is extremely similar to the markings that Dragon has on his face. Now, before I go further, let me just say that, like, I don't think that this picture we're looking at is, like, 100% canon. I don't think an Incan made this. Just taking a guess. I don't think an Incan back in the, I don't know, however, thousands of years ago made this. I'm just taking a guess. But
quite the artist.
Yeah, I haven't really seen this marking on Amaru anywhere else that I've been able to find. This is the only place I've seen it, but it is fascinating that it looks like Dragon's marking on his face. And I think Dragon's marking obviously is integral to his character, and there's going to be like a big reveal about what it means. And I know a lot of theories revolve around what the marking on Dragon's face is. And I was trying to think of like the timeline of when he got that, because what was it, like 22 years ago when he met up with Vegapunk at Ohara? It was like around that, right? Something like that?
Yeah, it was about 20 years ago.
Yeah, so he didn't have the tattoo on his face.
No, he didn't have the tattoo on his face, but he did have that like marking on his pants though.
Ah, okay. So,
but then again, we do know that Oda loves to foreshadow powers and characteristics on clothing as well. Like how Luffy has always worn a sunflower. Okay, I say always. He's worn a sunflower 2 times, one in Dressrosa and one as a kid, which, you know, people look at that and they're like, oh, you know, sunflower, sun god Nika, kind of a stretch, but, you know, I like to think Oda's pretty, you know, I feel like it was implicit, you know?
No, I agree for sure. Sun.
Yeah.
Sun. It's always, the sun is always there with Luffy, regardless of how
loves
you
the
feel
sun.
about, yeah, regardless of how you feel about Nika. The sun has always been associated with Luffy, more or less. So whatever this marking is could have been always associated with Dragon. Now here's another big stretch on how Dragon got this devil fruit and got the marking on his face. It goes back to us talking about Sandersonian and Marigold of Amazon Lily. Now here's another big theory about Dragon, and it's that Dragon went to Amazon Lily at some point in the past, and that's where he met Luffy's mother. Because Luffy's mother could possibly be the Empress of Amazon Lily, who was holding the throne before Hancock. Now, because we heard that, you know, something happened to her, she died of love sickness or whatever. So I think that probably has to do with her falling in love with Dragon. And since they have snake stuff there, like it's all about snakes and stuff in Amazon Lily, and we saw 2 regular snake zoans there, and Hancock's is Medusa related, so that's kind of snake adjacent. But what if they gave Dragon the mythical snake fruit?
That'd be kind of crazy.
And then
just like having a bunch of snake fruits there, yeah.
And then that's when he put the mark on his face, because I don't know.
Yeah, he wants to live up to the name. He wants to live up to the devil fruit. Now I gotta like go back to Amazon Lily. So does Amazon Lily have? So I know that they have that castle with a bunch of snakes on it. Okay, they have 5 snakes, I think, all around Amazon Lily. I wonder if that's symbolic to maybe how many snake zones they have over there. But probably not, though. I feel like there's more behind the island. But either way, like having Dragon get the snake fruit from Amazon Lily, I don't think that's like necessary. But I could definitely see it, right? Because Luffy in some weird fashion has like this connection to Amazon Lily. Thanks to Boa Hancock, but also simply because he's a fighter, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
I mean, his connection also goes back to Kuma. Kuma sending him there. It's like, why did Kuma send him there?
Yeah.
It's like, who else is Kuma associated with? Obviously, he was like, I don't know, the former Yonko commander of Dragon or something, maybe, or one of the commanders of Dragon. So it's possible he's like, oh, this is my former captain's freaking son. I know his backstory. I know that his mom was the former empress, so I'm just gonna send him to his mom's homeland.
Yeah, it's kind of strange, right? Like, he sent Zoro to Mihawk. That makes a lot of sense. Nami to Weatheria makes a lot of sense. Usopp sending him to get pop greens, I guess that could kind of make sense. Chopper to a medicine place. Like, everything makes sense except for Luffy. Maybe, I don't even know. Like, I don't know how to justify that, right? Because that's before Luffy met Hancock, so Kuma has no idea that Luffy and Hancock would kick it off. So there has to be some reason. Whether that's because of Dragon's connection to Amazon Lily, I'm not too sure. But now that you mention it, now I'm like, I got that itch in the brain, you know?
No, that's what I'm saying. It really scratches that itch. Regardless of if it's true or not, it scratches the itch of like, this is fun. Regardless. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, as for the rest of this stuff and what it can be tying to, we'll go back to Skypiea with that flashback of Nolan and Calgara, where we saw that woman being sacrificed on that altar. And as she was being boated to the sacrificial altar in Skypiea, they were like, take the girl to the altar. God of the sun, God of the rain, God of the forest, God of the earth. Now, at the time, it didn't really mean much. We thought it was just, whatever. They're just
mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, making up stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
But now, turns out that it's probably, it's the truth maybe. Because the sun god Nika is what Luffy's fruit truly is. So that means that there probably is a god of the rain, god of the forest, and god of the earth. Now, the god of the rain could be what Dragon is. And that could be what his devil fruit is. The mythical, whatever, Amaru, mythical snake, whatever, Oda eventually wants to call it. It will be what this god of the rain represents. And then, I guess the rain comes with the wind too. Just weather in general, because then there's like the forest and the earth. I don't know who the forest is. I mean, there's like a guy with a leopard suit here. Could be Lucci, but that seems like a waste. God of the earth could be Emu. Emu is associated with the earth. But that's stuff for another time. But yeah.
I think what's interesting about this is like, dragon being some sort of flying mythological creature, I feel like makes a lot of sense, right? Going back to like the wind and just the rain. And you can kind of look at it and say, okay, so dragon, he probably needs wings because that's how he controls the weather. And you're like, but what if it's not him, you know? But looking back at his ship and the name of it, his ship is even named the Wind Gamma, and it has a dragon for a helm. So it's like, wait, like there's got to be something here. Like you can't even deny the wind powers.
No.
Because I see some people saying that maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's fate itself bringing Luffy up, but I'm like, no, this is Dragon. Like, there's nothing fateful about this. Dragon's just running that wind over, you know?
That's
He's the
what I'm
breeze
saying.
over the hill.
He is 100%. I mean, it would actually, I think, be bad writing if Dragon doesn't have wind powers. Because then it's like, then what was going on all those other times? Was he it was just the winds of fate coming around? So, yeah, I totally think that he at least is like a Logia, because we haven't seen that, and it's kind of like the one Logia that's missing at this point. The one Logia that seems like it would make the most sense, because they're supposed to be like natural occurring things. So like, you know, where's the wind guy? We've seen all the other ones, you know, except for water, but that just, it would be broken. You can't have a water Logia, obviously, but yeah, that's...
I feel like whatever Dragon's fruit is, it's going to be somehow tied to South America, simply because that's Dragon's whole character, or at least that's how Oda wanted to base him. You know, going through SBS's, Dragon has had a lot of Cuban influence in Oda's little buildup of his character. Even his ship name, the Wind Grandma, I'm sorry, I keep on mispronouncing that one. That is like a Cuban yacht as well. So it's like, it just makes a lot of sense that whatever power he has it has like some South American influence in it. And if this is like an Incan-esque devil fruit, then I could definitely see it.
Yeah, so I guess we could end the video on this. I'm glad you're bringing up the South American stuff, because Amaru, the mythical snake that we were talking about, that name also shows up again in Peru, because there is Tupac Amaru II. And yes, you're thinking Tupac. Yeah, that's where Tupac Shakur, the famous rapper, got his name from. Tupac Amaru II. Now, this guy is important because he was like a revolutionary in himself, apparently. Very, very similar to Dragon. He led a revolutionary against the Spanish in the 1700s. In the Spanish, back in the day, they may as well have been the Celestial Dragons. So, and then, you know, just one last thing. If you look up Tupac Amaru II on Google, he kind of looks like Dragon. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
He kind of does. I'm looking at it right now. I'm like, dang, this is a dragon pose, dragon hair, and he actually drops a cold line. I don't know if he actually said this, but some of the top articles, one of his lines says, "I'll be back, and there will be millions of us." And it's like, yo, Dragon starting the revolutionaries and gathering countries? Like, I don't know, man. I kind of like that.
Yeah, maybe that's his decry against Mary Joie, because they were already there once, and it's like, hey, I'm coming back. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Emu, because of course we haven't talked about this character enough, and we got another theory about what their devil fruit could be, or what their true form could be. And I got my boy Sai with me, as always, on these break weeks. What's up, Sai?
Yo, what's up, guys?
So
thanks for having me, Zhoniin.
Yeah, anytime. You know, just subscribe to Sai and don't subscribe to me. You guys know what the deal is.
Or vice versa. Either one.
So in
I prefer the vice versa.
Vice versa for sure, as long as it's reverse and it's coming back at you. But in chapter 185, we see what is implied to be Emu's devil fruit transformation, right? I mean, I assume that's what this is. I guess you do too. You're not like one of those crazy pedantic people that's like, no, that's not what it is.
That's their real form. They just got taller. For Emu, you know, I know we just talked about how crazy these people are. I think there is like that 10% chance that this isn't a devil fruit, because this was from 800 years ago. So I think anything's on the table. We don't know when devil fruits came into existence, but maybe this is like the first devil fruit, for example. Like, I feel like there's something there, but if it is a devil fruit, which is what I'm leaning towards, I feel like we got an interesting chance.
Yeah, I agree for sure. If it's not the first devil fruit, it's at least one of them. Like, I just have this strong feeling that Emu and Dagorose and, you know, maybe Joy Boy or whoever had first pick of the devil fruits. Like, they even probably had something to do with planting the trees that fruited these fruits, or bared these fruits, maybe. But there's little evidence to go off of that stuff right now. But as for Emu's possible fruit, I originally talked about it probably being like some kind of, I don't know, dragon or something like that. Less of like an Easter dragon the way that Kaido is, more of like a Western dragon like that we see on Punk Hazard. It could be something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Or it could be the title of this video. It transforms Emu into the Florian Triangle monster. Because like
that is still unexplained. What
Exactly.
a mystery.
So still unexplained and still never addressed. Never even shown again since then. It almost makes me think that like it wasn't even something Oda really cared about. He just kind of put it there to be like, ooh, spooky, and then just like, all right, never again.
I'm not gonna lie. Back when I read that for the first time, I got kind of scared. I had to like lock my door after I saw the narrator box, and it was like, ooh, hundreds of ships disappear. I was like, oh god, mom, please close my door. Turn on my light, my night light.
So I'm glad you mentioned the hundreds of ships disappear, because that's going to go into what this fruit could be. So for sure, I think that the Florian Triangle monster, or whatever it is based off of the Umibozu, which is like a long time Japanese like supernatural folklore thing, or yokai as they say. And what this thing is it's just some big apparition type thing, humanoid in shape, usually black with like two glaring eyes, maybe could be red. A lot of artist renditions have it using or have it with red eyes. Actually, a lot of artist renditions, it looks straight up like Emu. Now, I don't know what Oda's doing. You know, none of us can understand how his brain works, but random people on Reddit
I like the Umibozu theory. I feel like we're gonna have to run into one eventually. Just with Oda being Japanese and that being such a prominent thing, and One Piece taking place 90% on water, on sea, I feel like Umibozu is going to come into play as like a mythical devil fruit.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Oh, yeah. Like, as far as the Florian Triangle, I got some interesting takes with this one. And the main one is that we know how Luffy is the sun god, right? And a main thematic of One Piece is Luffy bringing the dawn, or certain characters bringing the dawn. And that's like huge, it's symbolic, and it also is quite literal because Luffy is the sun god. I feel like having whatever this is, right? Umibozu, Emu, some strange monster hidden in the Florian Triangle, I feel like that's significant because when the narrator talks about it, they say that it's hidden by this thin white veil. And something we know about the Florian Triangle is that it's never exposed to light. Thriller Bark lives in perpetual darkness. So I feel like what lingering in the Florian Triangle, it's not an ally. It's not going to be friends with Sun God Luffy. It's definitely going to be someone on Emu's camp, if not Emu themselves, or maybe even another member of the Gorosei. Because this transformation, like Umibozu or whatever you want to call this, it does somewhat look like the wacky silhouettes we got back in chapter 1085.
Now, yeah, but it's not necessarily as big as the Florian Triangle monster. The Florian Triangle monster, I don't know, rough scale, is larger than Zunisha.
It's larger than mountains in the real world.
Yeah, just rough estimate.
Kind of scary.
But it is possible that Emu can, shapeshift, because, if you just go through the Umibozu wiki, it says that there's multiple accounts or just multiple tellings of it where it varies in size. So maybe it can get bigger, maybe it gets smaller. I mean, that's not uncommon for One Piece characters with fruit abilities. Like sometimes they can get massive, like Pika, like his fruit made him like, gigantic. And Pizarro, he can like take over islands with his ability and he becomes the skull on Hachinosu. So I don't think that's too far out of the realm of possibility.
Oh, not at all.
Let me go a little more into what Umibozu is all about. So it's like this big apparition that appears in the water if you go into its territory. So that's even more so going into Florian Triangle stuff. It's like a specific place where they usually dwell. And sometimes it can ask you like, am I scary, or something like that. That's like plays into a lot of Japanese supernatural stuff. Like it'll ask you a question or something. So that's kind of part of the course. But what it also does, it demands a barrel from you, or a bucket. Like it wants like a barrel or a bucket. And if you give it like a standard one, it's going to like scoop up seawater and then just pour it on your ship until it sinks you. So that makes me think like, okay, so that's kind of like going into... But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Extra Wallet. So guys, I can't express to you how much I love the Extra Wallet. I've been using it for over 2 years now, and it's never let me down once. Like 6 out of 10 times when I use this in public, I always get compliments on it, or I'm just asked like what it is. It's slim and sleek, holds 6 of your cards and easily pop out with the click of a button. That never gets old. It also has an RFID plate on the back. This is the carbon fiber version, but I also have the matte black version, which is so sexy. Extra also has a key case, and just like their wallets conveniently holds your keys, it even holds my gym membership. But another thing that you can get with the key case is this key tracker. Simply just connect it to the Chipolo app in your phone, and you'll always know where your keys are in case you lose them by accident. I mean, we've all been there, right? Also, guys, Father's Day is coming up, and if you're looking for the perfect gift for your dad, look no further than an Extra wallet, key case, or both. They're also currently offering 35% off site-wide on their Father's Day sale, and you can get that with my code Zhoniin, or you can check the link in the description. Thanks, guys.
What devil fruits are, the weakness that you have once you eat a devil fruit, you can't swim anymore and you have weakness to water. And I always thought that emu had something to do with that, because they say that, or Shanks, I'm pretty sure said it, right? That the devil fruit was enchanted by sea devils. Whoever eats it gets amazing powers, but the sea turns against them. It's like, what are the sea devils? And, or just straight up, what is the sea devil if there's just a singular one? You can go off of multiple translations with that. And I'm thinking, like, it could be emu. Like, emu has, like, I don't know, the sea devil fruit or something like that. Because, also when we see Sabos shoot that fire at emu, like, the mouth looks very monstrous, dragonous, or whatever. It's, like, super sharp teeth. Aside from that, the way that you can, like, I don't know, outsmart the umibozu is giving it a barrel that doesn't have a bottom to it, so it's kind of just stuck on an infinite loop of like trying to scoop up water, and it gets like confused or something, and then you can sail away. So yeah, I don't know what that has to do with anything. I don't know, maybe it's a clue to defeating emu.
No, it's definitely a clue. Because do you remember the beginning of Thriller Bark?
Refresh me.
So what kicked off this entire island arc was that the Straw Hats found a barrel of sake just floating on the ocean. And, obviously they picked it up and then Zoro drank a lot of it. And on the barrel, it actually said, offering to the sea god.
Oh,
and then we later learned that it was a trap from Moria's group, and there was no sake in it at all. And that is what alerted Thriller Bark to their presence, and then Moria came and picked them up. But that does fall in line with the lore of the yokai umibozu. So I definitely enjoy that. And I can see why this would make the most sense out of anything, too.
Yeah.
Like, the shape matches up, the lore kind of matches up. Hidden in the darkness, it matches up. And hey, Oda's Japanese, so low be it for me to say Oda wouldn't bring in Japanese mythology here.
I mean, that is very, very true. I don't see why he wouldn't. I mean, he's been doing it this whole time.
Oh, yeah.
One last thing about the umibozu here is that apparently there are tales of them shape-shifting into a beautiful woman and engaging in swimming contests with humans. And, I constantly spouted out that I think emu's a woman. So that, I don't know, maybe it could be something too. Also about the barrels, it makes me think of Bink sake. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with the latest chapter of One Piece where we learned Emu's real name, like the full name, like Emu Nerona. Some people have been splitting up the Nerona part to say Nure Ona, which is like water woman, which is another yokai as well.
Oh.
So that could fit. I mean, obviously, we see the obvious, like, narrow and inspiration, but it could be multifaceted. It could be both. I think Nure Ona could be another solid yokai.
And it just goes ultimately back to, even if it's not umibozu or whatever, I just do think at the core of it, emu does have the ability to somewhat control water. Like, not water logia, but like, just manipulate water if it is in the vicinity to some extent or something. So all of that I think does connect here, regardless of what it ultimately is. I do think woman, water, and then there's some kind of supernatural element to it.
Water, woman, shapeshifter. I think those are the lines where everybody's kind of at, and I really enjoy that. And a hot theory that I want to throw out there myself is that when I first saw Emu's design in 1085, the first thing my mind went to was a cartoon devil. Just when we saw that tail and just the way it's shaped, I was like, oh, okay. Like, they can shapeshift, they can do all this weird stuff. And when it goes about, like, defying logic and even, like, controlling water, I feel like being cartoony allows you to do all of that, right? Like, we saw Luffy, grab lightning when he was fighting Kaido. He rubberized it. I feel like Emu will have some sort of ability that is akin to that.
Yeah,
and
I
that
mean,
could
why not?
allow them to be yokais too. Like they can be anything they imagine, just like Luffy.
Yeah, just the antithesis to Luffy. I mean, that's what it is ultimately, right? Sun versus the moon. So Imu's fruit should be the antithesis to Luffy's fruit.
Oh yeah, and there's something really interesting about like the monster, like we talked about. Like it's hidden in the darkness, right? Luffy's the sun, then it's like, oh, like he's got to bring the dawn to him, right? Give him the sun, give him the vitamin D. Same
Give
with
him-
Emu.
Give him multiple D's, to be honest. I mean, if Emu is a woman after all. But also, you're wondering, like, why why would Emu be in the Florian Triangle? And it's like, I don't know. Why? Because of the darkness. But also, a rough look at the unofficial map of One Piece. Like, you could just Google it. I don't think Oda has ever made an official one yet. I mean, if he kind of did, it would give people too much insight.
It would break everything.
But Florian Triangle shouldn't be too far away from Erishua. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility for, I don't know, Emu to just go there, I don't know, just to stretch her legs or whatever. You know, it would be different if it was like way far away. Then it would be a little harder to kind of justify that. But Florian Triangle's like not too far. So, you know, it's not too much of a stretch.
One thing that's interesting that I like to go back to as well is that Emu being from the Nerona family, right? We don't know if they're like from 800 years ago. We don't know if this is a brand new Emu quite yet. But regardless, the Nerona family definitely came from some country, just like the Nefertari family, just like the Don Quixotes. So that means that the Nerona country is out there somewhere. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was hidden within the Florian Triangle.
Oh.
Like maybe that's where it was and then it got deleted, or maybe it's, you know, somewhere near Navy HQ. The kingdom that they came from has to be there somewhere. It could even be God's Valley for all we know. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things when you think about what 800 years could do to you and your family if you're the ruler of the world.
Yeah, I hope to
There's,
find
there's a
out
lot of
one
things
day.
out there.
But
Imagine we learned it in an SBS, just the interview.
yeah, why not at this point?
He doesn't show us. He's like, well, if you guys don't know about Emu, just show up to the next interview. I got you.
But speaking of God Valley, we're going to be talking about that in our next video over on Sai's channel. So head
Yes,
over
we
to
are.
Sai's channel now, because that's going to be the end of this one. Thanks for everyone tuning in. Subscribe to Sai, don't sub to me. And also, like I said, we're going to be talking about God Valley and Figureland Garland in our next collab, which is going to be on his channel. So go check that out. And thanks again, guys. See you in the next one.